Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
There's only been one person that has criticized me on that.
Yeah.
And it was somebody who hates fun who said,
well, I guess we're not going to know who that is. We're going to go to break.
You're in the zone on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, a Friday edition of The Zone right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Josh Brisco, and Drake. We head up until 2 o'clock. We got you for the next 4 hours. A number of things to get into. We'll talk some NFL football today, a lot of NFL football today. We will talk with Matt Derrick coming up later on in the show. Typically an hour from now, we'll talk with Matt Derrick from Chiefs Digest. We will talk with him after the Chiefs are done with their press conferences. We will hear from some Chiefs rookies probably not an hour from now, maybe a little less than that. And then Mark Donovan around 11:30, president of the Kansas City Chiefs, Mark Donovan. He will be heading to the podium to talk with the assembled media, and we'll hear that press conference as well. So we've got Chiefs rookies, we got Mark Donovan, and then after that is over, we will hear from Matt Derrick, Chiefs Digest, and we will hang out with him for an hour whenever we get a chance to talk with him. He is there at training camp, has been watching the last 3 days, Wednesday, Thursday, and then practices today. The last practice of just the rookies and those that have had some sort of an injury in the offseason program, especially the Phase 3 part of it. And then the full squad practice coming up on Sunday. So the last one of just the rookies of the limited players that are there. Also, no Patrick Mahomes or Blaine Gabbert. The veteran quarterbacks get the day off on Friday under Andy Reid's training camp. Today is no different. So there is no concern there of Mahomes and Blaine, unless there's like some huge, like maybe it's like a team-wide holdout for Chris Jones. It's like Rudy, the team laying their jersey. I want Rudy to play in my place. Mahomes and Gabbert and everybody else, I'm not going to camp until Chris Jones gets his contract. I don't think that's the case, just because, every single year, the last day of rookie practice, the veteran quarterbacks get the day off. So, that's probably more what it is. We'll talk some college football a little bit today as well, and a few things to get into with that, and really just college athletics, but a lot of it having to do with college football, with SEC Media Days going on, and the NIL stuff coming out with Cory Booker and Jerry Moran and Richard Blumenthal with their proposal that they floated out yesterday that is different than the one that Lindsey Graham had out there and the one that Tommy Tuberville and Jerry Manchin have out there. So there's roughly more than a dozen different legislature proposals that have been at least brought up, discussed, disseminated about NIL and college athletics. So the one yesterday we'll talk a little bit about, and then also, some reaction of that with, Lane Kiffin yesterday talking about college football right now is a, as he called it, quote, disaster. So we're going to do some of those things as the show progresses. 913-912-4810 is the text line. 913-912-4810, the text line to join us to be a part of the show. Josh, how was Oppenheimer last night?
It was fabulous. It is a 3-hour masterpiece that actually did not feel like 3 hours, which is a real compliment to extend to a movie that takes that much time to tell the full story. But it was immense, I would say, in scope and scale, in the story it went to tell, in the cast, in the actual execution, in what everyone in that cast did, from Cillian Murphy to Robert Downey Jr. and Emily Blunt. It was really, it is a movie that, of course, everyone knew when the trailer came out that it was going to be, an award season darling. But I think that it will be probably rightly viewed as maybe the pinnacle for Christopher Nolan, specifically in the kind of biopic category or in the history category. Like I think it's strides better in terms of its depth and the story it told its characters than Dunkirk, which I thought was good. Dunkirk is a very good movie, also won a lot of awards. But I would be much more likely to return to watch Oppenheimer a second time than a movie like Dunkirk or some other really good. Renee and I were talking about some other, like, did you ever see Argo with Ben Affleck from maybe a decade or so ago?
Liked it.
Yeah, it reminded me of that, but through a massive and magnificent sort of Christopher Nolan scale and scope. So I think you will certainly enjoy it. Is a weird term because it's not filled with laughs. There's a couple little moments of comedic relief, but it is an intense, excellent film.
Yeah, I want to watch it, and I wish they would have had the premiere when I was in town, or maybe just hold off in releasing the movie. Until that would have been smarter. That'd have been better, or release it earlier before all of the strikes happen, and then you can have some of the actors that are there at all the premieres. Might have had some actors there last night. With you guys.
That's exactly right. And if they would have, and I wrote a very strongly worded letter to Christopher Nolan, to I think Syncope, I think is the production company. I wrote some very strongly worded letters that said Jason Anderson will not be able to be at the 810 B&B Theaters movie night if this movie comes out. When it does, we're going to need to go ahead and hit snooze for about a week or so. And I've not heard back yet. So I think they're still considering it.
Interesting. Well, I hope so. It'd be smart if they did. It's just good business.
I would love it because I've seen it now, and a lot of people would have to wait even longer. Like, think about how high and mighty I could be about it.
Great point. Yeah, and typically you are. We don't
I know.
That.
Love that.
What we generally get from you. Oh, I've seen Asteroid City twice.
Twice.
It's now becoming an asteroid state for me.
Yeah, I'm here for an asteroid world. I'm gonna see it 3 or 4 more times. I might buy it on VHS just so I can have it and be pretentious.
Blu-ray. I'm so excited for that.
I might buy it on digital and burn it to a VHS. Maybe make my own VHS case for it and everything. Really, I am going to be insufferable.
You are young. You dub to a VHS. You don't burn to a VHS.
I was a VHS child, but and we recorded some things at VHS, but you're right. I made a lot more CD mixtapes than I did VHS cut-ups, Drake. That's absolutely a fair accusation.
Yeah, I mean, get it together, dude.
Thanks for saying I'm young. I've really been having to come to terms with that with all the interns around here this summer. It's been jarring. So. Oh my
goodness, when are you celebrating the big 2-7?
Yeah. Yeah, we're not
so young. Oh, I'm so old.
Rapidly approaching 30, Jason. Rapidly.
They're interns that are around here that are in their 20s. I feel so old. I'm like 24 and a half. I don't want to count 25 yet.
I am looking forward to being able to get a rental car, though. I think that'll be awesome.
Yeah, and then and your parents are excited to get off their insurance.
They're gonna love that, I bet.
It's like about time, man.
As long as they let me stay on their Netflix.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's fine. There is no age limit for that, I've been told. 913-912-4810. The Chiefs talking today will be Echo Boydo. He will talk, undrafted free agent from Kansas State, cornerback, and Keandre Coburn, 6th-round draft pick from Texas, and Deneric Prince, an undrafted free agent. So a couple of UDFAs talking today, and Keandre Coburn. So we heard from some of the veterans yesterday. Veterans is in Pacheco, but Edwards and then Felix and Udike Uzama and Wanya Morris and Shamari Connor. And so we've heard from those guys. And today we get Echo Boydo from Kansas State, which will be, a fun tie-in. I'm pretty sure he's from Lawrence, but I could be wrong. Sorry. And then Keandre Coburn, which is an interesting draft pick because we've talked about that as to does he eventually take over for a Derek Nottie and they move on. If Coburn was drafted last year, maybe they wouldn't have to bring back Derek Nottie this year. That spot could then be filled by Coburn. Turk Wharton can take the spot of a Colin Saunders, and you move on to the next couple of years from Nottie and Saunders to Coburn and Turk Wharton. And then there's a lot of excitement around Deneric Prince. Deneric Prince might be this year's Isaiah Pacheco, that through the training camp last year, it was all about Isaiah Pacheco. I had mentioned that through the early preseason games and I don't really see it. I know he runs hard, but a lot of people are pumped for what they're seeing at training camp. I'm not up there every day at training camp. Those with the first person observations of training camp are talking about Isaiah Pacheco. Chiefs are talking about Isaiah Pacheco. We'll see. I kind of want to see it myself, and I hadn't seen it for a little bit, and then ultimately I saw it, and we talked about that throughout the season, Josh, that you're like, you will. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm waiting. No, you'll see it. I'm waiting. Then it's like, okay, finally I saw it. I get it, what everybody was talking about, which is great. They're saying some of the same things about Deneric Prince. I'm more inclined to believe that this year about Deneric Prince, even if I didn't see it, based on just a year ago's experience of Pacheco and going, well, I want to see it. I know people are talking about it, but I want to see it. Okay, I'm not seeing it yet. And then eventually I did. So it was sort of that projecting of what he could be in Pacheco. And the Chiefs have a 1,000-yard back. And Brett Veach last year was very prophetic when he said there's a 1,000-yard back that's going to be drafted late in the draft or an undrafted free agent. And they got one. Because, again, if you take from the time Pacheco was named the starter through the Super Bowl, if he played 17 games at that pace, it'd be roughly 1,200 rushing yards. So I believe without injury, he's going to rush for 1,000 yards this year. It's 58.5 yards per game. So 60 yards per game in a 17-game season, you can rush for 1,000 yards. It's not necessarily the same that it used to be at one point, but maybe Deneric Prince, not a 1,000-yard rusher, but a guy that certainly has gotten a lot of conversation, Josh, so far in the mini camps and things like that. Starting Sunday, they'll have fans in attendance. It's open to the public on Sunday. Monday is the season ticket holder day, but then it's open to the public, so we'll be seeing Deneric Prince and these guys firsthand.
Since you self-reported your own Isaiah Pacheco disbelief back in the day, I'm gonna even throw you a line here because I think it's actually a very interesting thing to keep in mind when we're looking at what the story around Prince will be. Because when Clyde Edwards-Helaire, now that was different, it was 2020, so that was the training camp at Arrowhead, right?
Yes.
But we got all the hype from him into LSU, and being from a team that the world saw play more often than most of college football, and certainly more than we got to see Isaiah Pacheco at Rutgers. But there can be hype around guys like that in camp that usually I think your skepticism will serve you well. The thing with Pacheco that ultimately came to fruition that we saw is that he has good vision. He's a rookie at this point last year, right? So, I mean, good vision is fine, but great balance. Great when he is met with contact. And that's stuff that you can't really see at full speed in training camp because you're very rarely going to get a chance for in-game violence in St. Joe. It's just a different environment. Mm-hmm. So running backs, I do think, almost have to prove it even more or later on than even a receiver who shows great burst and a contested catch. That's probably going to translate. You feel pretty good about that if you're seeing all of those tools. With running back, it's hard because you're eventually going to get hit by a dude whose entire job is to take you to the ground, and then what happens in that moment, I think that might be the most impressive part of Isaiah Pacheco, and there's plenty you could choose from, but I think it'll be fascinating. And also, on a technicality, Isaiah Pacheco did rush for 1,000 yards last year because throughout the playoffs, he added on 200 more. He's not a 1,000-yard rusher in the way that you would need for an immaculate grid spot, but he was very, very, very close. 40 yards off from 1,000 yards from scrimmage in the regular season last year, and did crack 1,000 yards rushing if you give him those playoff numbers also. So I think I am excited for Prince. I still think there's a chance they keep 4 running backs. It includes Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But I think the hype for Deneric Prince is going to be a lot of fun.
Well, and also Deneric Prince's training camp could mean whether or not they could trade Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Yep.
If they get a 7th-rounder back or a 6th-rounder and you send a 7th-rounder, you move up around and somebody gets Clyde Edwards-Helaire and you move up Deneric Prince to the 3rd back and find somebody else that can fill in maybe as a practice squad guy or, somebody on the open market or something like that, then, to take that spot and you get a draft pick next year for him. So it sort of depends on what happens in this training camp. We'll talk with Matt Derrick, and I'll get his observations of what he's seen so far. One of the other things I want to talk to Matt Derrick about is, so we discussed the defensive line yesterday with Charles Omenihu. Chris Jones obviously has been a discussion over the last, 5 years, 6 years of his career. He's been very good. But George Karlaftis, I mentioned yesterday or the day before, whatever it is, I'm like, it might have been yesterday with Matt Lane, and I'm like, well, Karlaftis and what he did in the final whatever games when he had the 5 sacks in the final 10 games or whatever it was. So I wanted to go back and look, and I want to bring this up with Matt Derrick because Karlaftis' last 10 games last year, his last 10 games last year. So week 12 through the Super Bowl, he had 6.5 sacks. if you just go week 12 to week 18, because he had a sack in the playoffs, he had a sack against the Cincinnati Bengals. So if you just go week 12 to week 18 in those 7 games, George Karlaftis had 5.5 sacks, had 7 tackles for loss, and 15 total tackles. Did you know, Josh, that from week 12 to week 18, there were only 7 players in the NFL that accumulated those stats?
No, I did not know that. I'm not shocked, but I did not know
He's
that.
one of them. He's one of only 7 players. One of the other ones is Chris Jones, by the way. So
that surprises me less.
Chiefs had 2 of the 7 players that did what Karlaftis did from week 12 to week 18 when he had 5.5 sacks, 7 tackles for loss. I mean, that's a tackle for loss that's almost a sack and a tackle for loss per game as an edge rusher. Hell yeah. You take that every day of the week.
While not being not being a D4 like speed rusher too.
Right.
So you know what he's adding in the run defense.
And throw in 2 actual tackles.
Right.
Per game, because he ended up with 15. The other 5 players besides Karlaftis and Chris Jones, Nick Bosa, Myles Garrett, Cam Hayward, Josh Sweat, and J.J. Watt were the only other ones to have 5.5 sacks, 7 tackles for loss, and 15 tackles. At least those numbers. Karlaftis was one of them from week 12 to week 18. Not only did he just start playing better, he became really, really good. Not only just he became a good player, he became really good. Chris Jones level type. Now, Chris Jones helps that, certainly. And so if you throw in FAU, you throw in Aminihu, Chris Jones' health, Turk Wharton returning, who's pretty good at rushing the passer, the different things that Steve Spagnuolo can do. A year under George Karlaftis' belt, an off-season under George Karlaftis' belt, the work ethic we know that's there, the sponge that he wants to just learn. I start to, and maybe it's not fair to him, I start to have more expectations.
Yeah.
And a higher excitement level for what Karlaftis can do this year, building off what he did last year. Because if he ended last year with 5.5 sacks over 17 games, like, oh, yeah, that's honestly, a good rookie season. I thought he'd have like 4.5. I did not get that point on the Chiefs over-unders. Mm-hmm. I'm usually very positive, but I went under on the total sacks from Karlaftis. He surpassed that. He ended up going over because of what he did. If that's over 17 games, Josh, 5.5 sacks and 7 tackles for loss and 15 tackles, like, oh, that's fine, rookie defensive end. But he did it in a 7-game stretch at the end of the season when he talked about things starting to click for him. That's what's incredibly exciting about what Karlaftis can be in year 2 of his career.
Yeah, and it does feel like his ceiling moves up because that's the part of it that there were questions for reasonably, right? Like the idea that he could be out there, and I will pat myself on the back for this one until I tear my rotator cuff. Or my preseason hot take was George Karlaftis will lead Chiefs defensive ends in snaps, not sacks or pressures or tackles, but snaps, because they drafted this dude where they did because they knew he could be strong. And this is such an overused bit of terminology. But the motor, the engine, all of the things that let you be a down-to-down defensive in the NFL, he was this tall to ride. You knew he'd be good enough at that part of it that he could be out there. The fact that the pass rush developed more as the year went on, and that looks like it could be a legitimate weapon that he's able to use, I mean, that really is a ceiling raiser, deeply encouraging. And it makes you wonder, hey, if that's one season, like how far can he escalate before he eventually plateaus? And I don't know the answer to that, which is very exciting.
Yeah, we had his sack number at 4.5, and he ended up getting 6 sacks on the season because he had just a half sack until week 12, and then he had 5.5 after that. You and Mick had the over on the.
And I wasn't that confident in it. I was barely hitting the over there, I think.
Yeah. All right, we will take a timeout. And Drake says that they may already be in the tent, at least the media there in St. Joe. We thought maybe the practice would be ending a little bit earlier. I do want to get into some of the NIL stuff. We'll try to get into that before the show is over. But there's a lot of NFL and Chiefs we'll be talking today with Chiefs rookies talking, and then Mark Donovan. Then we'll talk with Matt Derrick. We'll take a timeout. More Zone coming up next.
Want to see more of The Zone? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810 WHB Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch.
At this point, I don't know what I could possibly tell you that I haven't already told you about Greenlight Dispensary, but I'm happy to tell you one more time, because at Greenlight Dispensary, this is the best experience you're going to find anywhere in Missouri when you're ready to begin your cannabis journey. Do you know what you want exactly? Great news. Greenlight's going to have all of it. Check them out at greenlightdispensary.com. You can order online there. You can pick up your order from their grab-and-go or drive-through windows, which is absolutely wild. We are living in the future, folks. I can order online and then hit the drive-thru on my way home. It really is incredible. That's if you know what you're doing now. Maybe you've got a few things that you like, a few staples from Greenlight. You're good to go. Order online and pick it up. But if you don't know what you're looking for, or maybe you've tried a couple of things and you haven't gotten the results you're looking for, you're not doing anything wrong, and you're not going to ask any stupid questions, because there's no such thing. Go into Greenlight and ask one of the bud tenders what they think might be right for you. You can share your experience. They'll hear what you have to say. And then every time, no exaggeration, every single time I have asked anyone at either one of the Greenlight bud tenders at any Greenlight location, or any of the vendors and experts at their underground events that they do the first Friday and Saturday of every month, every time I have asked a question, I have gotten an answer that taught me something, informed me more, and made me excited to figure out what this product was going to be exactly. It has been a great experience going to Greenlight. It's where I went whenever I got my medical card back in the day. Well, now Missouri says, hey, recreationally, open for business, and Greenlight is going to treat you right. So go check them out at any of their 4KC area locations, or all their locations are online as well at greenlightdispensary.com. One more time, that's greenlightdispensary.com.
Westwood One Sports presents this special report on the 151st British Open, sponsored by Prevagen. Brian Harman putting his stamp on Royal Liverpool. He's 10 under after a 6 under 65. Harman eagled the last, but don't forget about the 2 holes before.
912-4810, the text line. Real quick capper on the Karlaftis thing, and then we'll get back into it with Matt Derrick coming up in the whatever hour, probably noon hour at some point. That we'll talk with him about a lot of different things. But Karlaftis and what he did from week 12 to week 18, if you were to put that over the course of a full season, which, it's tough to do. 7 weeks is not 17 weeks. So doing it over the course of an entire season is difficult. At that exact pace, that would be 13 sacks, 17 tackles for loss, and 36 tackles, which was done last year by only 3 players, Nick Bosa, Myles Garrett, and Chris Jones. So that's not to say what Karlaftis will do this year. I think that's an example of, in those 7 weeks, Karlaftis was playing like a player that is a premier defensive end. Not that he is that or will be that or is even close to being on the level of a disruptor like a Bosa or Garrett or even Chris Jones, because I think he benefits from Chris Jones. But I think it puts into perspective a little bit of the level of play they got from him that, quite frankly, I've sort of overlooked myself, because I didn't put it into the perspective of, well, what did he do? Okay, well, how's that compared to what everybody else did in the league? Okay, well, what would that be over a 17-game stretch? Okay, well, who did that? Oh, well, that's rarefied air. Mm-hmm. He probably won't come close to those numbers. I'll take half of them right now. I'll take, 7 sacks and 10 tackles for loss, 20 tackles if that's the case. Sign me up right now. Because, I think with Omenihu and FAU and Chris Jones, I think there'll be a number of guys that can accumulate some sacks and things like that. But it is at least a level of, they didn't just get somebody that can set the edge, and good luck getting somebody that can sack the quarterback. He's never going to develop that. Sort of what you talked about, Josh, that he's good enough to have the snap count, but we'll see if the sack numbers and the disruptor of tackles for loss ever actually comes up in his career. Well, it took him 11 weeks for him to get there, to do that. So just something to keep in mind as we look at next year and the expected improvement for certain players that were rookies.
Sounds like I got a great George Karlaftis tape, but we might be heading out to St. Joe here momentarily. Drake is looking at buttons, throwing phones around. Looks like it could be one of the guys.
I think Deneric Prince is heading in.
Okay, well, if it's Deneric Prince, I'd love to hear from him.
Let's go.
I saw some workout stuff you did over the summer, the training camps. Just talk to us about what you were able to do there and how you tried to prepare.
I was just working on footwork and technique just to get me prepared to come into camp ready.
What do you think is the biggest jump from going from the college games to the program?
I think the biggest jump, probably playbook, more technique. You got to be smarter and just be a pro to the game, pro to the playbook.
It's a lot of different guys in the running back room. What makes you different? What do you offer to this team different from what they have?
I just feel like me personally, I feel like I'm an every down back. I feel like I could do it all, from routes to running hard or whatever they need.
Eric, how would you evaluate your own pass protection, and what are you looking to improve as you go along here?
Obviously, I want to get better at everything, so I feel like I can improve in my pass protection, and wherever coach need me to improve on, I'm looking to work for it.
How has Jared guided you? I know that he participated on the field with the Chiefs. How has he guided you at this Chiefs?
I've been on a couple zones with him and the coach, and he's just a leader, and he was just helping me with the plays, helping me learn.
Derek, you didn't get thrown the ball a lot at Tulsa, but you've got a lot of passes thrown to you here so far, and I know the coach said they really look pressure in your hands. Where'd that come from? Has it always been that there, or is that something you intentionally worked on?
Yeah, that's one of the things, like, if I don't get the ball in the game, I stay after practice, get extra catches, just to always be prepared.
What's your learning curve been like? How much more comfortable are you now than you were when you first saw the playbook a few months ago?
I just dive into it. I got to fall asleep going in the playbook. It's a lot of things to learn. I've got to be ready.
You feel like you're grasping it?
Oh, yes, sir. Most definitely. I feel like I'm learning it and catching along.
Are you ready for what's to come here when all the veterans show up?
Oh, yeah, yes, sir. I'm most definitely ready.
In the summer, you didn't get to be out there with Isaiah. What's your first impression of being out there?
I'm just out there, just watching him and learning from him. That's the only way you're gonna get better, is learn from who in front of you.
You didn't also return a lot of kicks at Tulsa either, but that looks like something that they're definitely going to ask you to do. How is that? How's that coming for you? And what do you like about returning kicks?
Just my ability to run in space. I feel like that's going to show a lot.
All right. all. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right, there's Deneric Prince, undrafted free agent rookie at running back. The biggest jump, technique, playbook, details, pass pro. He'll do whatever. Hands, he wants to always be prepared, stay after practice. Kick return, ability to run in space. There's the press conference. And here's Keandre Coburn.
First day was a little challenging. You prepare for camp. I was in shape, but it wasn't, the best football shape. But we fought through it as a D-line. It was 4 of us, and it's been fun the past 3 days.
What is it about the first day? Is it nerves? Is that what kind of makes you tired?
I mean, this is my first training camp in the NFL, so obviously, I had a little nerves. But I just think consistently doing, drill. Like, we were good, but, like, you constantly going. There's only 4 of us right now, so it's a little challenging, but it's been fun.
As you look to carve out a role on this team, what do you think you can bring?
First, I got to know the playbook. That's my first thing to help the team in my role, and I just got to fight through everything. Like I said, know the playbook, finish, and do things like that. I can't help the team if I don't know what I'm doing. You know what I mean? So I think that's my role first, is to know the playbook, so I can help the team in that type of way.
Yeah, what's been your greatest takeaway so far from Joe Cullen and some of the one-on-ones that he's given you?
Man, he's not going to sugarcoat nothing. He's going to tell you the truth. He's going to tell you what you need. I mean, they've been watching film since I've been in college to know what I'm good at, what I'm not, and what I can get better at. It's a different league now. So things like that, just detail about everything I'm doing, from my step, from my hands, from my eyes, how my stance is, things like that. So he's been helping me a lot.
In college, you were able to dominate. Talk to the K-State guys. They talked about how blockable you were for them. Do you think that that's going to be the way you're going to be able to continue?
You said K-State guys? Like Pop? Yeah, I'm undefeated against Kent State. But, I mean, it's whole different. It's a whole different game. It's a league. Everybody's good. So I got to come here with a mindset to defeat the offensive lineman any way I can, from little keys that I see that they don't see, that little things like that. So it's a way different game. I just got to come with it every play. I'm most definitely confident. I wouldn't be here if I wasn't. So I am. I'm blessed to be here, and I'm just going to keep playing like it's my last.
It's probably going to be an up and down thing, right? You're a rookie at this. Where's your confidence now compared to when the first time you were at the OTAs?
Oh, it's way up from OTAs and rookie minicamp. When I first got here, I was happy. I got drafted, got down here, and then they just threw it out on us. And I was like, oh, man, I'm kind of lost. But that time from rookie minicamp to off-season program and to OTAs really helped a lot. To even now, I kind of feel more confident going out there, telling them rock left and things like that, just knowing it more. So I think it helped a lot. I feel more confident than I was when I first got here.
What was the first I'm lost moment you can
Man,
remember?
it was just when we first got here and they just gave us a playbook. I'm thinking, okay, I know what to do this day. The next day, something like whole new. I'm like, man, I ain't learned this yet. And so I think you just got to be serious and just take all the time that you have, extra time that you have. Make sure you're getting a playbook. Know it the best way you can know it, then the best way they teach it and things like that. So I had a whole lot of I lost moments when I first got here. But, I mean, all I could do is just get better each day. I mean, that's the standards that Coach Joe said. Joe say all the time is be better than the day before and things like that. So I'm just trying to be better each day that I step on the field.
How is your process of just setting the play? Is it just like cranking for an exam? What is your process?
Actually, Turk just helped me yesterday with a Quizlet. He sent it to me. Thank you, Turk, for everything that he did for that. He's a real great leader right now for us right now in here. And then just knowing each, like if it's a blitz type of package, if it's this type of package, I ain't gonna say it out there to put it out, but just putting all the plays in certain categories to know what I'm doing at that time, knowing what I have to do and things like that, then know the 3-tech, and then just know the DM, because Joe wants to know the whole defense, to be honest. Spags wants to know the whole defense. Like I got called out yesterday in the meeting, and it was a little shaky, but I have to know that because I'm on a defense. They expect me to know that, and I expect the DBs to know some of the things that I do. So just learning like that, not to just take all the plays at one time, but like put it in different categories and learn it the best way you can, and then just help out like that.
How about you out in the NBA?
Oh, it's Spags.
Yeah, he just asked you to do somebody
Yeah,
else.
I'm just say that. Yeah.
Okay, and then with Turk, did he come up with that? Was on his own?
Yeah, he came up with that his rookie year. He said his rookie year, that's what helped him learn, and then he gave it to us as as a leader like that, older vet like that, and it's just gonna help us out continue from now.
I think that as an interior defensive line, people don't think of the playbook should be hard for them. Just how difficult is it just to grasp that, even like on the defense?
I mean, I ain't gonna sit here and say it's just the hardest thing out there. I mean, it's new. I just came from Texas for a long period of time to now I'm coming here in a new playbook. Everything is kind of the same. It's just different words, different, words and schemes is like how they do it out here and how we do it out here. Now I can say that, but it's just different like that. But I have to know it and things like that. So just study. I mean, I don't have school no more. This is my job. This is my school. So, you know, a little more like you have to know it because what else are you doing? So things like that.
Yeah, maybe on the quiz thing with Jerk, is that a paper? Is that just a sheet of paper, or is that something like online?
Oh, you ain't never used Quizlet?
No, I guess maybe.
Man, it's an online thing. Yeah. Oh, my bad. Hey, man, Quizlet helped me a lot. So just say that.
How fortunate do you feel that at some point here you're getting work directly with Chris Jones?
I mean, I'm just here to work right now. So when I see him, I'm gonna work with him. He's a great player. We watch him all the time. Try to learn little things from that right now. But all I can focus on is right now coming here and just performing the best I can right now and learn what I can do. When I see him, hey, I'm gonna ask him. I'm already doing rookie duties for him, so things like that. So it's like that.
We're less than a month away from the first preseason game, your first real environment in an NFL, sort of stadium. Is there something that you want from this camp? Something that you've identified that you want to show improvement here, so that you can put it on tape?
Like you said, it's a month away. Right now, I'm trying to focus on the playbook. I think if I don't know the playbook, I can't go out there and be confident in playing. So I want to just know the playbook best in my ability to where I feel confident when I hear the play, hear little schemes that I know it. So I think I need to worry about that to help the team, because that's my way of helping the team is knowing what to do before I can worry about anything else, finishing, things like that. Little details that I can work on to help the team and help myself first, because if I don't know the playbook and know the details and all that till, like you said, a month away, then who am I helping? I'm not helping nobody. I'm messing myself and I'm messing the team up. So I need to just take these moments right here, like days like this, like the little 3 days we had, to take advantage of the opportunity to know the playbook and be ahead.
With your size, number, personality, you've gotten a lot of comparisons to Colin Saunders. I don't know. Did you watch a lot of Colin, or did you see a lot of?
Yeah, man, I watched him. Who hasn't watched the Chiefs? Who haven't played Madden and see the Chiefs? Everybody pick them and things like that. So yeah, I've seen a lot of comparison. He can move for his size. Very good at pass rush and things like that, and he runs to the ball. And I love that because that's my passion. Like, if I can't get you right there, I'm gonna try to get you back there. And I see it a lot in his film. We've been watching it a lot. So like, especially in the Super Bowl when he made that play on Jalen Hurts. So things like that I want to take my game to the next level, just like that, and just add little tributes and things like that from him and things like that.
Have you watched this quarterback thing on Netflix?
Man, I started it. And then I had a furniture issue, so then I had to worry about that. And then my baby was screaming. I don't know if she want to watch it at the time, so little things like that.
If you watched a little bit of it, what are your thoughts from what you saw?
Man, it's cool, man. I've been watching Netflix since I was a kid. I actually took over the account in high school, so I'm still paying for it to this day. But it was cool seeing it, like, just the NFL a little more closer in. I love stuff like that because I love to watch and see how things is. I'm a rookie, so take some of that video and just see how they do little routines and things that, even though it's a quarterback, it's still the same with NFL players. So it was pretty cool to see.
Thank you, guys.
All right, there's Keandre Coburn. He's going to be a favorite.
Yep.
You can tell it already, right, Josh?
Yes.
He's going to be liked.
A young Danny Shelton to me.
That's right. Here's Echo Bueno.
Just being pretty much a homegrown guy. Went to Kansas State from Lawrence. And now I'm here with the Chiefs, man, and I just can't ask for any more.
Did you use I assume you were disappointed not being drafted, and how did you use that to go forward?
I mean, it is what it is. I'm here now, and I'm here for a reason, so I have my opportunity, and I just go out there every day and show them what I'm about.
Do you feel like you belong at this level?
Of course.
And didn't it start for you kind of similarly at Kansas State? You were scout team, right?
Right.
It started for you there. Did that experience kind of help you, with your current status?
For sure. I've always just had that underdog mentality ever since I was little. They always said I was too small or whatever. So I just have that chip on my shoulder, and it's just always been that way.
How eager are you to see what it's like when everybody's here on Sunday and you get that first real team practice, and what you might be trying to sort of identify that you need to show to the coaching staff?
Right. I mean, it's just been a dream of mine just to be a part of this. So I'm just very eager just to be a part of it, and just to show the coaching staff and everyone in the program what I'm about.
Were you a Chiefs fan growing up? Did you go to games as a kid or anything like that?
I've been to a couple. I wouldn't say I was like a diehard fan, but as time has grown and they've been winning, of course, you got to be a fan.
What is it like seeing that Mahomes locker room when you working with him?
Yeah, like I said, it's just a blessing just to be a part of it all, and I'm just grateful.
What do you think separated you as rookie camp?
I think I just showed skills that that not everyone has, like speed, things like that, which kind of put me up there. So.
All right, so no interceptions in college, but you had a low completion percentage against you. How does that happen?
I mean, I just go out there and play ball, and whatever comes, comes.
A couple more.
Yeah.
What kind of opportunities you have after the draft? Were you picking between the Chiefs and other teams?
There was a few other teams that wanted me to come try out, but I wasn't signed or anything after draft day. So, I mean, I'm in the spot I want to be in right now.
Why so? Why is this the spot you want to be?
Because it's the Kansas City Chiefs.
What were your biggest takeaways from the last 3 days out here?
The game's just a lot faster. It's more mentally, more mental than college, I would say. Just getting the playbook, and after you get the playbook under control, you can just go out there and play ball like we've always been doing.
How much has your family lineage inspired you to get to this point?
Man, a lot. That's definitely my why. Why I go out here and give it my all every day. So, yeah, a lot.
All right, thank you guys.
Thank you guys.
There is Echo Boydo. I didn't hear that last part of how much the motivation is. I missed that last part, but he said it's his why.
His family and legacy, and that was the sort of setup of the question. I was hoping he'd go into some more details about all that because I'd love to hear what goes into all that. But.
Absolutely. He's a guy that signed an undrafted rookie free agent deal, was invited to rookie minicamp, and made the 90-man roster out of that. Not all of those guys at rookie minicamp then advance to the next stage. You know what I mean? Like, you get that. The draft picks do, some of the priority free agent signings, and then Boydo was able to translate that performance into this trip to training camp. And he's one of the few. I think he and Sebastian Gutierrez was one of the other players that was an UDFA that wasn't like a priority UDFA that ended up making it to getting the invite. There was a few of them, not all of them though. There's a lot of guys that come into rookie minicamp. You just sort of a tryout, and then it's like, oh, thanks, see ya. But Echo Boydo took care of business, and he said, one of the things that stood out to the speed. Said speed. He brings that to the table, and he certainly does. He's a guy that ran a sub 4.4 at the pro day at Kansas State, so and a 37-inch vertical. So he's got the measurables in terms of athleticism that the Chiefs like. 4.3, 840, 37-inch vertical. So he's got those things. And Blair Kirkhoff talked about all the different pass breakups and the low completion percentage against him. No interceptions, but he was always around the ball. So one of the reasons why K-State's defense was that good, they had Brents on one side and Echo Boydo on the other. So it's pretty good when you get a couple of those guys there in college. So, local kid, hopefully it works out for him. But it'll be a tough position to crack at cornerback in the secondary with all of the young talent that the Chiefs have.
It also might be the best cornerback group in the league to get coached up within, despite not having high draft pick pedigree. Like, it's kind of an interesting little catch-22 there.
Yeah, no, that's because if you look at I don't know if they keep 4 or 5 cornerbacks, they're going to keep McDuffie and Snead and Watson and Williams. And they're going to keep. Will they definitely keep Nick Jones?
I don't think it's definite. I think that's a guy he would have to take a job from.
Yeah, DiCaprio Boodle. He's a guy that's been on the team a couple of years. You would have to beat out a couple of those guys. You'd have to beat out a couple of draft picks. Obviously, you would have to do that. But can you beat out Boodle, who's been around a couple of years? Can you beat out Nick Jones, who they drafted in the 7th round? So clearly they saw something more in him than they saw in you, but doesn't mean you can't go out there and do that because you get there, competition, get on the field, learning the playbook, all of that stuff, see how it goes. But, hoping for the best for Echo Boydo, local kid from Lawrence, went to Kansas State, and now a Kansas City Chief in training camp. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll continue rolling. More Zone next.
Take the show with you by listening live on 810WHB.com, in the 810 mobile app, or by subscribing to The Zone wherever you get your podcasts.
Training camp is here, but your fantasy football drafts are probably still pretty far away. That's a horrible feeling. I, back in the day, would just start doing mock drafts the minute they start opening up on those fantasy sites that you could go your season-long leagues in. But now, now, friends, there is a better way. Let me tell you about Underdog Fantasy, the easiest place to play fantasy football, hosting the biggest fantasy football tournament of all time. That's Best Ball Mania 4, with $15 million in total prizes, $3 million going to first place. I really love Underdog. I've already started drafting my best ball teams. It's a great way to get a feel for your season-long fantasy drafts later on. This is way more fun than a mock draft. Plus, you're actually going to have people invested who are going to be making their picks as opposed to drafting 3 rounds and then dipping out, which is the mock draft lobby way. And Underdog, you will have people there going through these drafts with you. And you throw a few bucks in, you can pick which draft you want to hop into. If you want to go Best Ball Mania 4 or any of the many other options that Underdog has, you can throw a few bucks in, and by the end of the year, maybe you're going to be walking away a huge winner. Last year's Best Ball Mania winner drafted their team in July. So if you're thinking, maybe it's too early. Maybe this is too soon to start taking these dart throws. No. This is the perfect time. Take what you know about the NFL, what you're expecting for the rest of the year, and then you can set your team in the draft. It's set. You can forget about it from there. It really is an awesome way to play fantasy sports. Plus, they have a lot of other great games as well. The higher, lower games are some of my favorite, especially for baseball right now. It's a great way to keep a little extra interest in on the baseball side of things while you're getting your fantasy life going again. It's a great time, and I don't know what you're waiting for if you haven't hopped in yet. Just sign up on UnderdogFantasy.com or via the App Store with promo code Brisco, and Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code Brisco, BRISCO. Must be 18 or over and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org.
Zero's on the clock. It's over. It's over. The Chiefs have won. The Chiefs have won Super Bowl 50.
All right, wrapping things up here in hour number 1. We will hear from Mark Donovan, president of the Kansas City Chiefs, coming up about a half hour from now there in St. Joe. We will hear that press conference from him. But real quick as we take a break, looking at the secondary of what's in camp right now and who they will keep, who they won't keep, things like that, and what the uphill battle might be for Echo Boydo. Trent McDuffie, L'Jarius Sneed, Jalen Watson, Joshua Williams are on the team. Nick Jones they drafted, that would be 5. DiCaprio Boodle's been on the team for 2 years, so he's got an advantage. That would be 6. After that, you've got, I count, 5 different undrafted rookie free agents that are in camp right now. Reese Taylor from Purdue, Isaiah Norman, obviously Echo Boydo, Lamar Jackson, and then Khalif Halasi. That's the uphill battle of one of those guys, but we'll see what happens. He said he's been an underdog his whole life.
We've received your nominations to honor Kansas City's best players and coaches with honorary ESPY awards. Now it's time for you to vote.
All right, we will hear from Mark Donovan coming up later on this hour, president of the Kansas City Chiefs, and no doubt from the assembled media, we'll get some questions about some stadium conversations as it relates to the Royals, but certainly affects the Chiefs. Todd Lebo was up there in St. Joe. I'm just assuming right now that Todd Lebo is in front of a TV or has his phone pulled up and is waiting for Taylor Tatum to make his announcement between Oklahoma and USC, one of the best running backs in the nation. I'm surprised he could be bothered to be up there to try to do some reporting with us with such a big day going on for him. So,
yeah, I'm sure that's absolutely consumed his day today.
It's got to. He lives and breathes high school football commitments.
He loves recruiting.
That's what he talks about.
Constantly,
man. That's all he does. 913-912-4810 is the text line. We didn't get a chance to really discuss much of it because it moved right on to Echo Boydo, but Keandre Coburn, I think he's going to be a favorite. He's fun at the podium, and just the things and the way he was talking. I loved the way he presented sort of his mentality and his approach. You know, he talked about Joe Cullen and what he's done in working with him and the details, and he's talking about, you know, his steps, hands, eyes, stance, all of that is being discussed and taught and honed from Joe Cullen, which is, you know, really great to hear because, you know, he's one of the best defensive line coaches in the NFL, talking about the playbook. And one of the things he said, which stood out to me, he said, you know, about him being more confident than the first practices and OTAs and minicamp and stuff. And he said, you have to know it, but you have to know how they teach it. And I thought that was really interesting, too. It's not just studying like, okay, this is my responsibility here, this is the play here, but it's also how they teach it from what they actually want to get accomplished on this play. What are the reasons behind why you are doing this or doing that? He got called out in practice, he said, or a meeting, and he said it was a little shaky on what other guys' responsibilities are supposed to be on that play, but he's got to do that. And then talking about the playbook I thought was really interesting, and he said, you know, it's not the hardest thing. It's different. It's new. I don't have school. This is my school. You have to know it. What else are you doing? I thought that was a great line from a rookie of saying, I got to know the playbook. What else are you doing, man? I mean, this is my job now. This is school. And it's, you know, something you want to hear from him. And apparently I learned there's a thing called Quiz It. So.
There are a lot of this. It was funny to hear that from to hear Pete not know what it was, and then for you to go, oh, that's not. I think he said it was. I mean, there's Quizlet, and I think there's Quizly, and there was some other sort of Spark Notes adjacent thing that I remember using in college. I'm not sure what the setup is, but Tershawn Wharton being up there because he's rehabbing back from the ACL. They started with him on the PUP list and everything. Him being there as an interior defensive lineman who had a way for him to help him hold the playbook in his mind and really not even just commit it to memory, but commit it to muscle memory almost, I imagine, right? To be able to help lead Coburn along that way, I thought was a great detail. And I'm really excited to see what he does end up being able to contribute because as was in that whole conversation, some of the back and forths in the presser, he's not learning the quarterback playbook, but it's his playbook and it's all new. Like he said, I can't help the team if I don't know what I'm doing. And lots of great little one-liners like that from Keandre Coburn. I'm excited to continue to hear from him, hopefully, throughout the season. I am very excited to see what he can do on the field. He's gotten a lot of press for a late day 3 pick, but I think it's pretty obvious why. That he projects as a relatively one-dimensional player at the NFL level where he's eating space and eating gaps. Well, good news, everybody. That's still really valuable, and the Chiefs need it, especially when Chris Jones is next to him, making his life easier. I'm really excited for Coburn.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to spend a high draft pick on that guy, but it's valuable, and if you get him in the 6th round and he can be that guy, I mean, Derek Nottie was fine first couple of years in the NFL. Probably not worth trading up in the 3rd round to get him, but filled a role, filled a void, literally and figuratively on the team. And now that sort of has run its course. And he's back on the Chiefs this year, I think more of a necessity rather than maybe a want of who all was available and at that price. And then you go and get Keandre Coburn, and the hope is that Derek Nottie can be the rotational guy where Coburn can be the 1st or 2nd down defensive lineman in those, running situations. 913-912-4810 is the text line to be a part of the show. The SEC media They have released the SEC media poll about 5 minutes ago or so as to the SEC champion, the division winners, the media all-SEC team, the second team and third team and things like that. Missouri has 2 players show up on the first, second, or third team. Offense, second team, they've got Javon Foster, offensive tackle, and then the defensive second team, Teron Hopper, linebacker. So you know what? Abrams Drain is on the second team cornerback as well. I was like, where's he at? But yeah, Abrams Drain is a second team cornerback, and then Darius Robinson, defensive lineman, is on the third team for Missouri. And how the voting comes in: SEC champion receiving 181 points, Georgia, Alabama second, LSU third, then Tennessee with 5 points, tied with Vanderbilt, then Arkansas, Auburn, Texas A&M, Mississippi State, South Carolina. The Eastern Division voting: Georgia picked to win these 265 first-place votes. Tennessee picked to finish second with 14 first-place votes. South Carolina picked to finish third with 3 first-place votes. Kentucky picked fourth with 1 first-place vote. So there's at least 18 voters that thought that somebody besides Georgia will win the East this year. Florida picked to finish 5th. Missouri picked to finish 6th. And then Vanderbilt picked dead last in the East with 8 first-place votes.
So you said Vanderbilt earlier, and I thought, well, there's no way you just misspoke, but I'm confused. And then you got through the East, and I'm still confused.
Yep. They are the 4th highest in terms of total points to win the conference. Georgia, Alabama, LSU, and then Tennessee and Vandy are tied. And they are picked to finish dead last in the division with 8 first-place votes. So what I'm seeing is that there are 8 people that pick them to finish first and win the conference, and literally every other voter put them last in the East. Because that's more first-place votes than South Carolina and Kentucky. And they're picked dead last. Like, it's one thing for Ari Temkin to say, I'm going to pick Oklahoma State to win the Big 12 because there's a surprise team that happens every year, and Gundy is a guy that blah, 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 and all the things he was talking about as to his reasoning why he went off script, if you want to call it that, from people picking Texas and Kansas State and Oklahoma to win the Big 12. He went Oklahoma State, and it was like, oh, you're a homer, you're an idiot, give up your credential. 8 people picked Vanderbilt to win the conference? What's the point?
That's a great question, Jason. What's the point? How and why would be, 2 of my base journalistic questions. And I cannot suggest that I have the answer to either of those right now. I am befuddled.
Is it possible that instead of writing in the team names, it was like, choose team number 8, and they were accidentally wrote down 9? What?
Scantrons are confusing. Maybe that's what it was.
Yeah, that's right. It's a hanging chad. It gets them every time. Also, with Vanderbilt and being the 4th most likely, according to the SEC media team, to win the conference, they have, let me see, the preseason all SEC teams, first, second, and third team. Let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 0 players Vanderbilt has on the 3 offensive and defensive SEC teams.
There's no I in team, Jason.
And no defensive players here in the secondary, so maybe no INT for Vandy. So there you go. There's your Missouri picked 6th out of 7 teams in the East. Not a surprise. We'll see what.
But weirdly, 3 first-place votes, so that's exciting.
They did not get any first-place votes, but South Carolina got 3, and Arkansas got 3 first-place votes for their divisions, which obviously means that they are better than Missouri. like the Arkansas media member said, that Arkansas is obviously and clearly better than Missouri. They just haven't beat them on the field yet. So I think Missouri's 7-2, something like that against them.
I love that you just found a way that Mizzou football has been disrespected. You ain't found that Mizzou football bulletin board material.
Yeah.
Eat
That's
bleep,
right.
Arkansas.
Take
We
that.
own you.
Yeah. TCU's head coach that I forgot his name already. I should know his name because he's been around for a while.
Sure has. I can picture.
Was it?
Sonny Dykes.
Sonny Dykes, yeah, there you go.
I had
Sonny Dykes.
Sonny. I was not confident.
Sonny Dykes with the college football coach / conference bragging rights version of a fan base yelling overrated to a high-ranked team that your team is now beating, which is you saying that that team's not as good as their rating, which means you're diminishing what your own team's accomplishment was by beating said high-ranked team. You feel like you should just make fun of that team and say that they are overrated. Sonny Dykes doing that at the podium last week and saying in conference realignment, well, you know, I think he was talking about Oklahoma and Texas, like, well, Missouri they were playing for Big 12 championships all the time. Haven't seen that in the SEC. Two things. One, Missouri played for 2 Big 12 championships in the Big 12, and they have played for 2 big SEC championships. Also, that's not an own when you say, yeah, this team was really good in our conference. They went to that conference. They've done nothing because that conference is so much better than yours is what you're saying there, Sonny. You think he realized he was saying that the SEC is so much better that Missouri isn't able to compete there, whereas they were playing in the Big 12 championship all the time when they were here. They were whipping everybody's ass. And now they go there and they're also Rans. But the Big 12 is really, really good.
I just realized Sonny Dykes, who he looks like. There's another football coach who he looks exactly like. He looks like the younger brother of.
Oh, wow.
I'm going to give you one shot just to kind of scan through it and see if it comes to you. But a former NFL coach.
Oh, yeah.
What if I tell you that Sonny Dykes looks like he might not be on a bottle of barbecue sauce, but maybe on a spicy mustard? He looks like the younger brother of Wade Phillips.
I was going to say Wade Phillips, but I was not confident.
Bang!
I was not confident. And I was like, is he going with Wade Phillips? I don't know.
He looks
I see
a little
bit.
You see it, right?
But is there somebody else? Yeah, I see it a little bit. But is there somebody else? Yeah, there's one particular picture of him like looking up into
That's the one I have open. Yes, it's the one I have open full screen right now. Is him sort of looking up to the upper left corner of your computer screen?
Right.
Yes,
that's exactly right. He
looks like Wade
looks
Phillips.
like Wade. You're right. That's the one I was looking at. But then I was looking at others. I'm like, well, is he thinking of somebody else?
No, that is the exact picture.
Yeah.
And I have always thought, boy, he just looks like a little odd, but a little familiar, and I can't quite place it. A long lost Phillips, Sonny Phillips. I'm gonna start calling him that.
Sonny Phillips. I like that. Sonny Phillips.
Sonny of
Wade
Bum.
Dykes.
How about that?
Like that.
Wade
Yeah,
Phillips' Twitter
absolutely.
handle's always been Son of Bum.
Son of Bum.
So now Sonny of Bum.
Sonny of Bum. It's always Sonny Bum.
Unless you go to
So
the
the,
SEC and then get your bleep canned.
Exactly. That's right. And then you can't play in nearly as many conference championship games as you played in your previous conference, except for the exact same amount. So, which is more than Arkansas and South Carolina and Kentucky and Vandy combined. Anyway, so what's going on the federal level with legislation that is being talked about with NIL? Yesterday, Cory Booker, Jerry Moran, senator from Kansas, and Richard Blumenthal have at least released and passed out the sort of parameters of what they want to get passed at the federal level in governing NIL at the college level. They want to create what is called a college athletic corporation that would handle these NIL deals, that would be sort of the governing body of that arm, as opposed to the NCAA then handling that and everything else. This would be sort of specific for those things. It is much different than the legislation that is being at least introduced or talked about with Lindsey Graham and what he wants to happen, and Tommy Tuberville and Joe Manchin and what they want to happen. Those are much more restrictive. Those are much more of oversight. For instance, I'll just tell you what the Cory Booker, Jerry Moran, and Richard Blumenthal, the one that was released yesterday. I like this. If there's going to be federal legislation to supersede the state laws, which is why they're doing some of these things, they don't feel like states should have the right to come up with their own rules over the NCAA's rules, which is a which is a collective of people that voluntarily agree to be a part of. You know, they're not forced to be a part of the NCAA. The teams volunteer to be a part of the NCAA. But this would establish the College Athletics Corporation, which would be a central oversight entity, administer, enforce rules that they want to protect athletes that enter into endorsement contracts. Athletes would be allowed to have representatives assisting them with contracts, finances, marketing, brand management, and institutions would be prohibited from punishing athletes for receiving food, rent, medical expenses, insurance, tuition, fees, books, transportation from a third party, which is different because Lindsey Graham and Tommy Tuberville's, they want to eliminate any third party whatsoever when it comes to NIL deals. One of the things I love about this latest one is a medical trust fund that will cover the athlete's out-of-pocket expenses and costs that have anything connected to an injury in college. It would cover medical expenses for athletes diagnosed with significant long-term conditions related to their participation in college athletics, injuries while in college, because there is there's an insurance that covers college athletics for a number of years after they are done. This would be in perpetuity. If 15 years later you are still suffering from chronic issues based on an injury in college, this would still cover all of your expenses. Funding academics. Your scholarship would be available to you whenever you wanted to go back. So your scholarship and until you graduate, the academics part of it, books and fees and tuition and everything would be taken care of. If you were to go to the NFL early, or if you drop out and then want to head back, it would be taken care of. They would establish the health and wellness and safety standards that would involve injury, mistreatment, abuse, death, heat-related injuries, mental health, overuse, a separation of some of the trainers feeling like they are pressured into putting a player back into play early. Some of the things that the players that want to unionize would like to have happen. They want to unionize so they can be a part of a collective bargaining agreement to dictate practices, things like that. This would help take care of that. Athletes would be they would be forced to take personal budgeting and lifestyle development, financial literacy courses in college. That would be part of their general curriculum. And so those are the things from this one. Lindsey Graham and Tommy Tuberville are the schools would be able to veto any NIL deal that a player wants to get involved with. Collectives would be eliminated in Lindsey Graham's case. The clearinghouse can sue, fine, or ban any athlete or coach if they feel like is breaking the rules. It also opens up attorneys general who could bring civil lawsuits to third parties, Lindsey Graham's proposal. And then Tommy Tuberville's would be you have to be in school for at least one semester before you can start negotiating for an NIL deal. And players must disclose all of their compensation. It must be made public how much they are making from endorsement deals, even though they're not employees of the state institution, where coaches have to all of the public employees have to do that. They're not employees, but Tuberville wants to do that. So
all of Tommy Tuberville's stuff's all super transparent and available to see, right? We can see where all of his contributions are coming from.
I know I got into a lot of those things because yesterday is so much different than what we've seen from the ones before that had a lot of oversight. This one is more of a feel that this actually has a lot of the players' interest in mind, and it is both sides of the aisle, with Jerry Moran being a part of that as being a Republican, Blumenthal, Booker being Democrats. You've got to have both sides of the aisle to come together to do this. I liked what they said yesterday. If it's going to get to federal legislation, I'm way more on board in this than all of the other crap that's been proposed and talked about before yesterday.
Yeah, I think this is probably a good next evolution. I think all of the medically based stuff that you detailed there is all not only excellent but mandatory in my mind. The couple of places where I hit my hangups on this one is one, when you talk about like players wanting to be able to unionize and collectively bargain, that this is where the chicken and egg are always going to be very tough, I think, for the players to step in on, because they are there for at maximum, well, not maximum, I suppose, especially as COVID rules have rolled out, but typically no more than 3 or 4 years, right? If you're going pro, that's probably on the 3-year side for football, obviously. I worry about I'm trying to choose my words carefully. I worry about any oversight organization that says, hey, players, good news, we're going to take care of all of this for you.
Yeah.
Because at some point, that devolves into being the NCAA with subpoena power. And I don't feel great about that as some sort of altruistic protection agency that will make sure the players are always taken care of, that they're getting the best coverage they can get, not just in terms of the medical, but in terms of the protections on a federal level, which there does definitely need to be some form of smoothing out of the regulations to where it is continuous nationally and statewide. You cannot have it all be this disjointed jigsaw puzzle of trying to maybe not knowing what the laws are as they evolve in real time. And there are things that you laid out there that I hope come out of this version that end up being a part of what they ultimately build around.
Yeah.
I will just continue to be deeply, deeply skeptical until I feel like the players have a sufficient voice to represent themselves. And I don't know that this creates that.
Yeah. And we'll see if that ultimately ever happens. If, because none of these that have been presented go into any detail of whether or not the players would be deemed as employees or not employees. Some of them specifically state that the tax-exempt status and the antitrust laws would not impact college athletics, the NCAA, et cetera. This one does not address either of players being employees or the whether it be tax-exempt or just simply be an organization that falls under the antitrust issues that are out there that are being sued, and there's a number of cases that are there to try to make some of the players employees and unionize and things like that. We'll take a time out. We're going to hear from Mark Donovan. Whenever he starts talking, we'll head up there. There's going to be some photo ops and some other things that'll be there for Mark Donovan and Mosaic and the sponsors for the training camp. And then when Mark Donovan gets to the podium to start talking, we will listen into that. We'll take a time out. We'll come back. More Zone next.
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. We'll head up to St. Joe when Mark Donovan gets to the podium to talk about the Kansas City Chiefs and the assembled media to hear maybe some of the questions that will be thrown Mark Donovan's way about this particular organization, and then also with some of the stadium questions that may be there. Did want to throw out there real quick from our discussion in the previous segment. And part of it sort of coming from the discussions that were had at the SEC Media Days yesterday, and Lane Kiffin, who was up there doing Lane Kiffin things, in calling college football right now a disaster, and is not happy with the free market of being able to go from team to team and transfers and things like that, and doesn't like that there isn't that oversight and legislation to help schools keep players from talking to other teams during the season. Not happy about that, which is great because, like, sometimes there are messages that you may or may not agree with. Oftentimes, though, the messenger could be a big part of whether or not that those ideals get across. Lane Kiffin saying that does fall on deaf ears when last year he was negotiating with Auburn during the season. At the end of last year, while his team was still playing games, he was negotiating a contract with Auburn that eventually got him a big pay raise. And also his two quarterbacks are transfers, one from USC and Jackson Dart, and then also Spencer Sanders are his quarterbacks this year at Ole Miss. It is a little difficult, Josh, if Lane Kiffin's the one that's like, we need to make sure that these kids are it's a disaster because, you know, schools talking to other kids and before they're in the transfer portal and all, like, middle of the season, you were negotiating with Auburn to take the job. You left Tennessee after only 1 year. Whether or not you agree with the thought of, you know, schools contacting players midseason, which I don't, you know, really like because you can't do that in the NFL as well. It's tough for a guy who literally last season was talking with another team about leaving while his team was still playing.
Yeah, no, Lane Kiffin is getting inducted into the Hypocrisy Hall of Fame as we speak. They're getting his bronze bust set up for him with his appropriately disheveled hair, looking like he just got spat out of the mouth of a whale. I mean, he straight to the podium. He looked like Jonah. It was unbelievable. To get there with, you know, far be it from me to tell anybody to run a brush through their hair or whatever. I don't want to become 80 years old overnight. But I mean, he looks like he was surprised to find out that it was media day, and then started talking as if he had just woken up from a long coma, where maybe he thought he had dreamt what the last decade of his life had been like. Because he at the podium, he will be the one that sets college football straight to tell us all about the benefits of commitment and keeping your word. I say, college football coaches are allergic to hypocrisy. They are allergic to self-awareness. They are inoculated to hypocrisy. It has no effect on them. They are allergic to self-awareness. And Lane Kiffin, God, I mean, a first ballot Hall of Famer in the hilarity game.
It's just great. And he got himself a brand new contract at Ole Miss while his team was playing last year and talking about taking the Auburn job. It's just brilliant.
And he's just a humbly paid educator. I mean, you know, that's
right.
Money's going to ruin college football. It really is. As soon as it gets here.
The problem is with the NIL stuff. What you're going to see is some of the bigger schools have advantages in getting these recruits. You're going to see teams like Alabama, Florida, Texas get like the best recruits, and that's an issue.
As soon as Georgia turns itself into a dynasty, I'm out. I don't think I can live with that.
I mean, you want to talk about an unfair playing field, is that there are all of these really premier players in the state of Georgia.
Yeah.
And if they start going to Georgia,
I don't know.
It's NIL stuff. There's no other reason why they would go to Georgia except for them being paid to go to Georgia.
And, you know, people always talk about the beauty of amateurism, and I love watching college football because I know that every person on the field is not being compensated for any of their work, including on the sidelines, and they just run those ads during the breaks just for fun, just to fill some time. That money doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah, no doubt. There's no question about those things. But But yeah, so that was that's going on with the SEC Media Days, and
I kind of like Lane Kiffin.
Oh, I do too. That's the thing. I do too. I like Lane Kiffin. I love how brash he is. I just love sort of his mentality, and I love that he's got no fear of Nick Saban to sort of just be okay with needling him, where I think other coaches may not feel a confidence of being able to do that.
There's a difference in poking the bear when you're like Max Crosby in a football game that may actually refocus Patrick Mahomes. What's Nick Saban going to do? Kick his ass? Yeah, of course. Yeah, because, Alabama and Nick Saban will collectively kick the asses of virtually everyone they come in contact with the occasional exception of Georgia, the other fire-breathing dragon. I mean, yes, this is what college football has been and will continue to be.
And he did it in a way, and he does it in a way that doesn't come off as sort of the Saban v. Jimbo Fisher when it feels personal and emotional behind it, that Lane Kiffin does it from almost a laid back, like, this is all kind of stupid. But I'm still going to have some fun at his expense because that's great. But yeah, I kind of like him. All right, here is Mark Donovan. Let's head up to St. Joe.
Hello, everybody. It's great to be back. 13 of the last 14 years, 14 summers, we've been up here. It obviously is a lot more exciting when you're able to be up here after winning a Super Bowl. And that 1 year we weren't up here was the year after we won the Super Bowl in '54. So it's really, really exciting to be back, and really exciting for our fans to be able to celebrate with us as we turn the page into the next season. I want to thank Dr. Kennedy, Mike, Pat, everybody for welcoming us and being such great partners. You've all heard me say this again and again and again. This is a critical period of time for our organization and for the success of our season. And without the cooperation, without the partnership, without the commitment of the entire staff, from the athletic department to the operations team, just dealing with day-to-day challenges to make sure our camp is as efficient as it possibly can be. And then one thing that you've heard already, which is really heartwarming to us, is the commitment to the fans' experience. It's what we do, and it's great to see partners who believe the same thing. The camp is really, really an important opportunity for our fans to see our players up close and personal, and we want that experience to be as good as it possibly can be. So we're excited about the season, we're excited about starting and kicking off here, and it all does start here in St. Joe. I will say one thing about St. Joe. From the first time we came here, the citizens, the fans, the business community have been so welcoming and so supportive. It really does feel like home when we come up here. And so we're excited to be here. We're excited to recently have extended our partnership to be here for this year and another year. So it's going to be a great partnership for at least another year to come after this. I'm going to hit a couple highlights. Blair did a great job yesterday of highlighting all the good things about camp for us, so thank you for that. But a couple things you should be aware of and our fans should be aware of. I mentioned how exciting it is to be back here after a Super Bowl win. We've gone to a ticketing system, so to come to camp you need to go online at chiefs.com/training camp, get the information there and sign up for a ticket. To give you some perspective, we have not had a practice yet open to the public, and we already have 80,000 tickets out for training camp. So make sure you get your tickets. The other thing is parking. Parking is online. Get a parking pass before you get here. It makes everything more efficient and makes the experience better. We have some additions to camp this year. The university's done a great job of upgrading some pieces of the campus. In addition, you'll see out on our practice fields, we have a product that we invested in a couple years ago to upgrade tailgating at Arrowhead. They're called tailgate suites. And we rolled 2 of them up here from the stadium at the back end of the field this year. So you'll see a new product out there. It's a great way to have a VVIP experience at training camp, and we're excited for our fans to see that. All that information is also on our website. And then the final piece I would say, which I say every year, is we have a free app. It's a mobile app. It's also on our website. Please go download that. If you're planning on coming to training camp, it is the best way to be in the know as to everything that's happening that day. We want the experience to be a really good one. with weather in the summer. Sometimes things change. If you enable the push notification, you're going to get up to the minute information on how your day may be effective in a good way or a bad way. When we do get storms, obviously we move inside, and unfortunately it's impossible to take care of the fans inside. So we want you to be aware of everything before you get here. With that, I'm going to ask Dr. Kennedy and Mike to come back up here. We'll do our annual photo op. How are we doing?
All right, so they are going to take a photo with some jerseys and things like that. And when Mark Donovan gets back up to the podium to talk with the media and maybe take some Q&As and things like that, we will head back to Mark Donovan. But it is a good point about heading to St. Joe if you're going to go to any practices or things like that. I know a lot of people at least plan it and say, like, you know, for me, I'm like, you know, talking to my wife, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to take Everett up to training camp to a practice, but haven't planned that out to which day we'll go or anything like that. And as he said, you know, with the ticketing system, you want to sign up for those tickets. There hasn't been a practice yet that is open to the public, and already 80,000 some tickets. Also buy the parking pass beforehand. So if you are heading up to training camp for a particular day, I'd say go ahead and start planning it. That's what I'm going to do after the show today, and go there and sign up for some tickets and everything for the training camp. And most of the days are free. There's a couple of $5 days. I think Sunday is $5. Okay, here's Mark Donovan.
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So we have learned through the years, back to my point on having a great fan experience, 5 to 6, maybe 7,000 people is about the max you can put in here to have a good experience based on the way we're set up now. So we'll cap every day. We have a number of days that are sold out. Our season ticket member days are sold out already. As you know well, we're pretty focused on data. There's also a no-show rate every single day, so we factor that into how many tickets are out there. But you know, this will probably be the highest attended camp in our history.
Mark, it's your 10th camp here with Andy, and I just wonder if you might be able to get your arms around how to describe what he's done in this time and how he's affected such change.
Yeah, I'd go back to the interview process in Philadelphia. He's done what we expected him to do, and more. He's a process-oriented, proven winner. And he brought process, he brought stability, he brought experience, and he clearly brought results. So it's been, I say this all the time, it's a really, really special time to be part of the Chiefs organization. It's a really, really special time to be part of our fan base. And internally, like, we appreciate it too. We don't take it for granted, and Andy's a big, big part of that.
And just a quick follow-up, I mean, not to chasing anybody before, but I mean, the contrast in what this means, I mean, to be at this time in the Chiefs' history, marketing-wise, strategy-wise, I mean, what does that enable you to do, also with Patrick, obviously?
Yeah, I think you look at the talent on our team, you look at the success we've had on the field, that's the unprecedented part, right? We've never, when you really look back at the history of this franchise, you've never had this success. We've had superstars, clearly, but as the world has changed and as it's gotten smaller and smaller, our superstars are now worldwide superstars. One of the reasons we're being so aggressive with Germany and Mexico to grow even more. We haven't, I always cite Lamar. You know, one thing you learn when you come into this organization is the humility of Lamar Hunt. And trying to figure out a way to be humble, but also be proud of the success on the business side is unprecedented. And we're in places we've never been. We've seen results we've never had. And that's all great. The focus is still the same. How do we deliver the absolute best fan experience every single time? And it's all related. Having Patrick and Kelsey and Chris and having that team, having a Hall of Fame coach, having the experience at GHA Field, I mean, there's nothing like it, but it's our job to make sure that's that every single time.
The Royals ownership has said they're in talks with you guys to make their big decision in the next 3 to 5 years. What have those conversations been like, and have you guys begun to work on a plan for when the Royals leave, whenever
Yeah, so I'll try to cover a lot there because I know it's an important subject. To answer your question, the partnership with the Royals has been great, and it's really, really critical to both of us that we have a good partnership as we go through the decision-making process. We've been consistent in every time we've spoken that it is a process, and it's a really important process, and we're still in the process, but we're making progress. I want to be consistent and reiterate something that Clark said last time he spoke on this. You know, if everything plays out the way we think it's going to play out, our preference for us is to upgrade and renovate the stadium at Arrowhead and make GHA Field even better. We've gone through the progress and made some progress there. There are still 3 viable options on the table, and we've got to do the due diligence on renovate, upgrade, build new on site, or build new somewhere else. So all 3 of those options are still part of our dialogue. We've learned a lot in this process. The good news is we think the building itself is actually structurally pretty sound, which gives us the opportunity. Having said that, we've learned that it's going to take a significant annual investment to keep that building structurally sound. And the other thing we've learned on the good and the bad is just like any project, right? There are certain days when you get that phone call, it's like, hey, we just found this. Might be an issue, right? And when you're talking about a core sample of cement that was poured in 1970, those issues they could be significant and they could factor into the decision. So headed towards doing what we want to do, making good progress towards that. Still a lot of work to do and still a lot of due diligence to do. As it relates to the Royals and their decision, obviously that factors in as well, right? So if and when they go, then that creates opportunity for us. Well, what does that mean, right? And it gets really complicated. You got a sports complex now that has one tenant. How do you deal with that? You got a sports authority. I will say this, in addition to our communication with the Royals, which is pretty consistent, we're obviously talking to the mayor, to the governor, to the county, the sports authority, and they're all in the loop on what we're doing and how we're doing it, and very supportive.
If the Royals did move to Clay County, how does that change things for you guys? You're going to be on your own to extend the tax? Thought about that part of it?
Yeah, I mean, we've thought about all of it. So I say that jokingly, but the reality is you've got to be prepared to be flexible and be able to pivot. That's a big one, right? Because all of a sudden that brings in, as you brought up, what happens to extending the tax? Because now it's 2 different counties, and what happens to the sports complex? So all those things play into it, and then the timing plays into it as well. We still are on plan to be ready for an April vote, if that makes sense for us. If the Royals decide to stay in Jackson County, then we've had discussions about how we do that together. And if they go, then that is a variable. We've got to be ready to either continue on that path or pivot. Our team has done a really good job of just being ready. And I feel like we're pretty well prepared for whatever happens.
Could there be a relationship between whatever the Chiefs end up doing and what you have to do for the World Cup?
So it's yes, but the timing is very interesting, right? 31 is the end of the lease. All the work on the World Cup has to be done 24, 25, 26. Then you got 27, 28, 29, 30. So it's a little bit of like, that would be really fast forwarding everything to try to tie it all together. The question then becomes, what are we going to do for the World Cup to be compliant, to host that amazing event that potentially we could keep or benefit from or not have to redo? Versus, we've got to make the building requirement proof for World Cup, and we got to do that absolutely perfect. We also have to play a football season pretty quickly after that. And we want our fans to have the best possible experience. So we can't really sacrifice the football experience because we did some things for World Cup. So it's a huge puzzle piece for our operations team. Again, we have a really talented team around us, and they are really well prepared for it. It's going to be a challenge, and it's going to be a 3 or 4 year challenge as we roll this out. But we've got a good plan. We've got good options. We've got some areas we can pivot. We're working with FIFA very closely, and obviously a great local organizing committee, and they're well aware of the challenges that come with that. But I think the more we've looked at it, the less I think there's ways to really take too much advantage of it because of the timing.
You're still planning on having the same number of seats in the lower bowl during all those football seasons, correct? You're going to have to move to come back for preparation for the World Cup. That's not changed?
Yeah, you guys should hear this. This is one of the first things that Clark said to us. We need to host the World Cup because of what it is and what it can do for this region. And we need to make sure that every single Chiefs fan has the exact same experience in 24, 25, 26, and 27. So figure it out. Well, that's the talented team we have around us. We feel like we actually do. It's going to be a challenge to get there, but that's how we're approaching it.
Is it safe to say there'll be more of an effect on your events, like summer events? Is that where you're going to probably?
Yeah. That's you think about this summer, right? Think about this year. We go from unprecedented number of AFC Championship games in a row to Super Bowl, to Super Bowl parade, to NFL draft, which, from a pride standpoint, both sides. Yeah, I was just so proud that we showed the NFL how special Kansas City is and how special our fans are. But I was also, proud of the NFL for bringing it to Kansas City and what it did for the league. It's raised the bar. You go from that to World Cup is in the middle of all that, right? Then you put Luke Combs on the stage, you put Taylor Swift on the stage twice, you got Billy Joel coming up, you got Beyonce coming up, I'm forgetting one. But think about a summer when you don't have that, because you're in the middle of construction for World Cup. So we got to factor that into it as well. I mention all that because I think it reiterates the commitment that the Hunt family has made to this region. Right? When you look at the opportunity to host the World Cup, it will be an economic driver that we have never seen as a region, ever. It'll have long-lasting international benefit for us as a city and as a region. When I look at the business evaluation, should we host a World Cup or should we keep doing what we're doing? When Clark evaluates my job, I sort of joked with him when we looked at it. I'm like, okay, we can do this, and we should do this. But this is what you judge me on. I can't be held to the same standard. We won't have a whole summer or two of events. So it's a bit of a balance, right? But at the end of the day, I know we've said this about parades and we said this about the draft, right? Biggest event Kansas City's ever seen, and we hit it out of the ballpark. World Cup is unprecedented when it comes to that. It's going to be the biggest thing this whole region's ever seen by a lot.
Matt, Mark, speaking of the World Cup and all the events you listed off that have taken place in the last year, that successfully stretches back into 2019 when the parade took place in Kansas City. Can you just speak to the moment Kansas City's really had in terms of hosting these worldwide events over the last 5 years?
Yeah, I relate it to it's a special time to be part of the Chiefs organization, right? Special time to be a Chiefs fan. It's also a really special time to be part of this community. We're proud of being a part of the community and being a contributor to the community. But Kansas City's on a really, really good trend when you look at what we're doing. And you think about World Cup and what it'll do for sporting, what it'll do for their facility. Talking to Dr. Kennedy, think about all the additional benefits of a World Cup. This campus is potentially a training site for another team. And again, I would relate to you that when we get to the World Cup, potentially multiple countries will be basing their teams in Kansas City, and the impact of those fans. These people come for a month and post up, and they travel from that city to the various matches. So it's a great opportunity, and it's a great time to be part of Kansas City.
Last one here.
what kind of work and preparation has to be done to be ready for the Germany game, and then what kind of opportunity does that present you all in front of the world stage?
Yeah, it's a huge opportunity. I'll start there. It's a huge opportunity for us. It fits perfectly into our strategy. We've been committed to growing the brand internationally for a number of years now, and we targeted Germany early on. We were pretty disappointed last year that we weren't the first team to play over there. But when you look at it strategically, and our marketing folks have schooled me on this, like, it actually plays out better to be the second. Everyone saw just how big it was last year. We've been in Germany for 3 years now, 2.5 years now. We went from being just another brand to being the #1 team in Germany on Instagram in the NFL, which is a significant point. We have had multiple trips over there, both activating marketing. So we did, to give you some perspective on how big we are in Germany now, we did a schedule release party in Germany 2 weeks after the schedule was out, and it was completely sold out. I mean, we had 150 people at this bar, and they were excited to be there. So it just gives you some perspective how excited they are, and then to have a game there. To answer your second question, or the second part of that question, from a travel perspective, we've got pretty good experience. Obviously, London, I think in 2014. And we'll go a day early. We won't go a full week early. So we've got a good plan in place. We actually have people in Germany today, the last few days, doing some finals. Our second trip as a prep trip to see how we're getting from hotel to field and practice and stadium and everything else. So the league does a really good job on that in giving us the resources, but then it's up to us to execute.
All right. Thank you.
All right, there's Mark Donovan at the podium there in St. Joseph. We will take a time out. A lot of stuff to take away from that that I want to talk about. We'll do that as we continue rolling. Matt Derrick will be our guest, Chiefs Digest. All that's still to come right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Want to see more of The Zone? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio.
for the veterans today. They will have their conditioning tests tomorrow. And on Sunday, the first open to the public training camp practice and the first full squad at training camp practice on Sunday. Monday being the season ticket day. So a lot of stuff I want to talk about, a number of things to get into with Mark Donovan's comments as it relates to the stadium and the Royals, and something interesting that he said as far as the ballot in April and some others. We'll talk about that. We continue. More Zone next.
Men, summer is here. It's a time to vacation, get outside, and enjoy life.
maybe getting some food, breaking some bread with everybody. But we'll talk with Matt Derrick, some observations from training camp and maybe what he heard from Mark Donovan. 913-912-4810. Obviously, the interesting stuff that we were wanting to hear and wondering about is the stadium issue that's going on with the Royals and with the Chiefs. And he said that, look, being a good partner is beneficial for both the Royals and the Chiefs. Still in the process, but making progress. There are 3 different ways that the Chiefs specifically can go about it: renovate and stay at Arrowhead, build new on the site out at the complex, or build new at a different site. He did say the building is structurally sound, but it will take significant investment to keep it that way. He said there are issues that come up, that the core sample of cement poured in 1970 to keep it that way. As it relates to the Royals and their decision, he said if and when they move, it creates an opportunity for the Chiefs, but it also gets complicated with one tenant in the complex and dealing with the sports authority that they've been talking with the governor, the mayor of the county, the sports authority, all of those things. What stood out to me is when we hear John Sherman say that they are the party of urgency, they are not the ones that anybody is waiting on. He was asked by Todd about Clay County, and he said, we've thought about all of it. You have to be flexible and able to pivot. If the extending the tax, if it's 2 different counties, also the timing plays into it. But here's what stood out to me about that. He said they're still on plan to be ready for an April vote if that makes sense for us. If the Royals decide to stay in Jackson County, they've had those discussions already. If they go in a different direction, we have to be able to pivot. That stood out to me because from Mark Donovan's perspective, at least, it kind of sounds like the only thing they discussed with the Royals is staying in Jackson County.
Yeah, which does sort of track with what we have largely assumed from the Royals side. Like the Clay County thing has seemed like plan B this whole time, right?
But even if there's plan B, though, if the Royals are actually examining and thinking that Clay County's a real player, the Chiefs would have to be on board with whatever is on the ballot in April if it impacts the tax in Jackson County. If the Royals are going to Clay County and then that tax or whatever is there that's supposed to be split between the two of them till 2031, well, then how does that impact the Chiefs then? What happens at that point of the Royals separating, that the Chiefs feel like they both have to agree? So if the Royals are going to break the lease one way or another, break the lease, stay in Jackson County, break the lease, or go to Clay County, the Chiefs have to be on board with whatever that deal ends up being. So I find it interesting that I agree it's plan B, but at least from Mark Donovan's answering of the question and what it sounded like he was saying, in that they've had discussions with the Royals already about getting that thing on the ballot in April, which they're still on track for if the Royals stay in Jackson County. If they go in a different direction, quote, we've got to be able to pivot. So I don't know. Just it sounded from that perspective like the Royals and Chiefs have only talked about staying in Jackson County, and the Chiefs haven't got into a discussion with the Royals about if they move to Clay County, what that will mean for the lease, what that will mean for the Chiefs. But they're going to have to be able to pivot based on what they've already had conversations and on plan and on pace for an April vote. I don't know. Maybe I'm drawing too much of a conclusion from that, but that's what stood out to me is him talking about that Jackson County, they're on pace. They're still ready, planning for that April vote, and they've had those discussions.
I also thought it was fascinating to hear him. I don't know if we've heard Mark Donovan say what we've heard. We had heard Clark Hunt say, which is who he was quoting there. He said, our preference is to stay and renovate, and there was this, whatever the other adjective was, upgrade and renovate the stadium at Arrowhead. That being plan A for the Chiefs, even with the your concrete cores and all of that stuff. Having that publicly be plan A, I do think is interesting. But, that's just my opinion. I'm way more interested to know what Matt Derrick of Chiefs Digest thinks.
I'm not at all.
All right, very good.
Let's not call him yet.
We'll take a break.
Let's not call him yet. Let's wait, Drake, if you can. Do not call Matt Derrick yet. Plus, I don't even want him listening to this right now.
No.
He's in St. Joseph. He's probably not listening. What? Oh, no. Matt, how long you been there?
Drake.
Hey, Matt, I'm so excited to talk to you. I've been waiting all day to hear your voice. How long you been listening?
retaliation for last week when I think I might have said something that I thought was pretty funny, but maybe Jason didn't think it was as funny as I did.
I also found it just as hilarious and knee slapping as everybody else in the city did. Okay, you and I are on the same page with that. Any from the Chiefs' perspective, Matt, and certainly from a sports complex, Royals, Chiefs, the April ballot, whatever that lease agreement looks like, from the Chiefs' perspective and the World Cup, I thought it was great when he said Clark Hunt told him, we need to host the World Cup because of what it can do for the region, but every Chiefs fan has to have the exact same experience in 24, 25, 26, and 27, so figure it out. That was a great line from Mark Donovan about the World Cup renovations that will take place to get them World Cup ready, or Arrowhead World Cup ready.
And the difference between now and maybe a few months ago or even a year ago is that Mark seems to think that they figured it out. That wasn't entirely clear, I think, a year ago when the implication was that, you know what, there might be some fans who are displaced during the World Cup, especially probably in that 26 season was going to be the really tough one because you play the World Cup and then the NFL season starts almost immediately. It wasn't really clear how much they were going to be able to undo before that. But then, you also get into the question of how much should you undo, since renovate and upgrade is an option for the stadium. And certainly, I don't know that we had heard anyone other than Clark Hunt, really say it, but to have it as unequivocally and direct as Mark did there, I think today was pretty interesting. But the preference is renovate and upgrade if it is possible. And certainly the indication is that the feasibility studies have said that the core of the stadium is doable for that. But I think the caveat was that he then said it's going to require a substantial annual investment. And that is code for it's going to cost everybody. I mean, it's not going to be just the Chiefs putting money into it, but obviously they're going to need public money to do that as well. That's the message. So, but they haven't obviously closed the doors. I mean, he made it also very clear every option's still on the table. Build new there, build new elsewhere, still on the table. So, but you're right. I mean, focusing on the Royals first is what needs to be done because that's going to figure out, what money is on the table, what pot of money is on the table that the Chiefs can use. They need the Royals figured out first. Yeah, and the World Cup renovations, we had asked the question of just wondering, not knowing the answer to it, but it's the first time we've heard somebody ask the question to Mark Donovan and have him answer it in the can the renovations for the World Cup be tied into what you may want to do, plans for an upgrade, a renovation for Arrowhead Stadium if you stay on site. And he said certainly that's something they're looking into, but he talked about with the timing of it. He said the timing's interesting, 2031 being the end of the lease. World Cup's got to be done 24, 25, 26, and then 4 years after that to sort of figure things out. He said that it would be difficult to tie it all together. So the more they look at it, the less he feels they can take too much advantage because of that timing. So whatever renovation, it feels like whatever renovations for the World Cup that they do or altercations to the stadium for the World Cup will simply be specific to that and not, well, while we're here, let's throw this in there, let's throw that in there, this could be an upgrade. We can tie some of these things together because this is something we may want if we ever upgrade or we get there at the end of the 2031 lease. We can sort of infuse this with the World Cup and get a head start there. But it doesn't seem like they're going to be able to take advantage of that because the timing of construction next summer and still 7 years away from the lease expiring. Yeah, I mean, the timing is difficult, but it makes you wonder, too, thinking long term here and with obviously the potential and maybe the preference obviously being to renovate and upgrade, 2026 probably isn't the only time in the next 50 years, if you're going to renovate and upgrade and stay in Arrowhead, that maybe the United States wants to host a World Cup. I mean, and I think they would obviously like to have other international, soccer competitions. So, do you need to consider just the fact that you do need to make some permanent renovations to Arrowhead to accommodate, not just now, but the future? I'm certain that is part of their equation and what they're thinking about. But, yeah, I think you really hit it, which is that they are separating the two. I mean, whatever they do for the World Cup in 2026, specifically for that. They will continue, it seems, to do some upgrades. They've obviously have been continuing to put money into Arrowhead, which I think is a good reason why you would think that they would want to stay there, because it's not like they're letting Arrowhead fall by the wayside, whereas maybe you could say on the other side of the parking lot that has happened. But the Chiefs have been still continuing to invest in Arrowhead. So I think it's pretty clear they want to do that. But, yeah, the 26 World Cup project is clearly its own animal.
I wonder if part of it, too, like, are the Chiefs interested in having a roof of some sort at Arrowhead Stadium, whether that be retractable or if that is just a permanent roof? I doubt the permanent part would be something the Chiefs would prefer, but at least have the ability to close that and maybe offer bigger events, not worrying about weather. Like, I know there was issues, and not issues, but concerns with the Taylor Swift concerts. Weather held off. It all worked out. But those concerts in a downpour, not ideal. If they build new on site or wherever, I definitely think a rolling roof could be part of that project. Staying, renovating, upgrading, I wonder how feasible, or if they would be interested in adding something like that to Arrowhead to maybe offer more opportunities to host things at Arrowhead in the wintertime, different times than just, in the summer when you hope that it's going to be dry, and maybe even open yourself up to getting on the list for hosting a Super Bowl, maybe if they do that.
Yeah, that is an interesting question, because it does fold into the choice of what you want to do. And I mean, I don't have a name to attach to this, but the impression that I've been given and understanding that I have is that that generally it's viewed that it would be easier to build a new stadium with a retractable roof of some sort than it would be to put a retractable roof onto Arrowhead. I mean, there's even, remember when the rolling roof was on the ballot the last time for Arrowhead and Kaufman, I mean, there was some doubt at the time whether that was even feasible, much less for the money that they were, thinking about spending it on. So I think that question is still out there. I mean, whether it really is feasible to put a retractable roof or a rolling roof on Arrowhead, and certainly whether it's practical and cost effective. So that certainly is going to come into the equation, and that's another reason why what the Royals are doing and when they're doing it is important to the Chiefs, because I mean, if they want to build new, I mean, they need the Royals out of there. That's going to be the first prerequisite to make sure that's done.
I mean, you could even get on the maybe in a group or a list or of hosting a Final Four. If you were to if you roof up, whatever, building new on site or upgrading Arrowhead and somehow feasibly find a way to offer a retractable roof, nailed it again, back to back, then you could also be in the mix there of at least entering your name of, hey, we'd like to host a Final Four. I mean, probably more feasible with the fact that being in April, because we host the Big 12 tournament. We know about some of those bigger events. Now that is away from downtown. It's not to where the Big 12 tournament is so great because it's right there. You can just shut down Grand and everything is located there, and bars and things to do. It's a little bit different when the games are out at what would be Arrowhead Stadium, a little ways away. But you could at least present the option to the NCAA that, hey, we'd like to also put our name in the hat for hosting this.
Yeah, and I'm not certain. I don't believe that the NCAA has ever, gone down that route of saying, "Hey, if you build this, we will come." So I don't know if they can really offer that guarantee. But the NFL has. I mean, the NFL has given the guarantee. You put a roof on something, we're coming with the Super Bowl. So those are the two events that you would be interested in getting if you're going to put a roof on the place. And I think that would absolutely be one prerequisite that the NFL would say, you build a stadium or you put a roof on Arrowhead, you will get X Super Bowl. That will happen. I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, I think that if the Chiefs had a stadium with a roof, I don't think there's any doubt the NCAA would put a Final Four here, because it just makes too much sense. I mean, history of that event in Kansas City, how this city supports the infrastructure, as far as the sports commission goes and everything. I mean, I think they would. I mean, I think the Final Four would be a regular event in Kansas City if it had a stadium with a roof.
And if there's something that connects downtown to the sports complex, whether that be rail or anything like that, then it makes it even more possible of, hey, everything can be centrally located downtown with all the events and everything. And then, hey, jump on this and it'll take you right to, the stadium and watch the games. I've thought for a while that, and if you're a local football team, that college especially, I've thought for a while that the Chiefs should be interested in having some sort of a bowl at Arrowhead Stadium. It becomes difficult when you're working around the schedule of the NFL. Understandable, makes it a little more difficult, although other stadiums are able to do that while working around the schedule with the NFL. But, Greg Sankey talked about at the SEC Media Days, and this would be something to where if I'm Kansas State, I would absolutely be interested in this, because Greg Sankey talking about that, in 2026, everything's open. The SEC got involved in the new stadium issues in Nashville. Yeah, because they're building a new stadium for the Titans, right? So it was in Nashville that the SEC got involved and wanted them to drop like some sort of a tax or something like that. And there was a question about, okay, so what's the benefit to Nashville then if the SEC is getting involved? And his answer was, look, after 2026, everything's open in the college football playoff. There's nothing tied in specifically to any bowl of the college football playoff. Everything's open. I don't know that he was hinting at hey, Nashville, you're going to get a college football playoff game if you do this with this stadium. But, it certainly makes it more plausible. I've always thought about, if they were to do something like that if I'm a local team like Kansas State, and I think there's a pretty decent chance I'll be going to the playoff because the winner of the Big 12 will be an automatic bid there to the playoff, and maybe the first rounds are going to be on campus. But what if they're not? What if the first rounds end up being regional? Well, then where are you going if you're regional, if you're Kansas State or KU or Oklahoma State, winning the Big 12 and getting an automatic bid? If everything's open in 2026 and conferences are sort of like peeking into different NFL stadiums, I'd certainly be interested in if the Chiefs were ever, going to examine or go down the route of, college football playoff. I know it's been traditional bowls, but it doesn't mean it has to stay that way. If they don't have a bowl, it makes it a little more difficult. But if they had one over the next 3-4 years, or who knows, in 15 years, maybe they're on the docket for a playoff game.
Yeah, and and that makes me think. I mean, if you're going to bring into the conversation about how else can a stadium be a revenue generator for the team,
and that's what I'm going for.
And for the city, well, the one thing I would tell you is that, of course, that's a terrible location for it. I mean, Arrow is not a great location. I mean, but you think about Atlanta as a great example. Indianapolis, even St. Louis is a great example. I mean, the Jones Dome, or whatever it's called now, was right next to their convention center. So they get a lot of events there that wouldn't come to Kansas City because they've got a giant arena with a lot of space right next to a convention center. If you had a football stadium downtown, which isn't on anybody's really conversation or docket right now, but that opens up a whole, and that's one of the reasons why Indianapolis is so attractive to the NFL, to the NCAA, because you can be in Indianapolis and you can be in Lucas Oil Field, you can be in a hotel, you can be in a restaurant, and never go outside. It's fantastic. So, and the Chiefs obviously have done a great job. Mark Donovan and staff has done an incredible job of getting concerts in, but there's still plenty of events that they miss out on because they don't have a roof, because nobody wants to do a concert maybe outdoors in July in Kansas City. I mean, some people do, but there's going to be some artists that are like, no, I'm not going to do it in 100 degrees in July and August. But that's when that's when Arrowhead's open. There's a few other times, but once again, weather's a factor. So there's things that they certainly miss out on right now because they don't have a roof.
Yeah, and also speaking of that, as you mentioned, that the revenue generator for the city, that they look at an overall net positive, but they're also taking into account that you're going to have a summer that you don't have those things because of the construction for the renovations for the World Cup. That starting next year, some of those summer concerts are not going to be there because they're going to be tearing out seats and doing some other things and redoing the field surface and all that stuff. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We continue hanging out with Matt Derrick, get his thoughts on these 3 days of practice, any observations, and some other things relating to the Chiefs. And it is report date for the veterans, and Sunday will be the first practice. We continue our conversation. We'll talk about the Chiefs team coming up next with Matt Derrick.
Want to see more of The Zone? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810 WHB Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch.
Westwood One Sports presents this special report on the 151st British Open, sponsored by Fidelity Wealth Management. Brian Harman continuing his fine form over the last few weeks. The lefty from Savannah, Georgia, posting the best score of the first 2 days at Royal Liverpool, 6 under 65. He's 10 under overall with a 5-shot lead. Harman had top 12 finishes at each of his last 3 starts. The hometown favorite Tommy Fleetwood, the only man at 5 under. He's even today through 12. On the back 9, Jordan Spieth is missing too many fairways and landing in the thick rough too often. That's a non-starter if you're going to truly threaten at a British Open. Spieth, 3 under overall, 7 back. He's 1 under today through 14 with bogeys at 10 and 11 after a hot start. Brooks kept...
All right, welcome back here in the zone right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Josh Brisco, Drake. We talk with Matt Derrick from Chiefs Digest. A little nugget to pass along from a player on the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs last year. Melvin Gordon has reached a one-year deal with the Baltimore Ravens worth up to $3 million. I'm guessing a lot of that being incentive with worth up to. But there you go. Member of the Kansas City Chiefs last year, practice squad or not. He got himself a ring, damn it. Now he's heading to the Baltimore Ravens. Matt Derrick hanging out with us. Matt, is there anyone that you've yet to identify as competition to be the first on the field there in St. Joe yet?
I haven't yet, mostly because everybody has beaten me during rookie minicamp. It's hard to get down to the field early during the rookie minicamp, so
Okay.
I haven't really counted this yet.
Okay.
So,
Why is it hard in rookie minicamp? What makes it so difficult?
Well, the first day, you can't go through the main entrance. You have to get carted down by PR. So you have to wait until the carts are running. And then the players were already almost all on the field by the time that happened. So, missed that. And then I may not have been, most timely the last couple of days. It wasn't there when I wanted to. If I had gotten there earlier and walked on the way down, yeah, I might have beaten a few people. But I mean, we're Sunday. That's when we're really starting the competition, and I'll find out. I'll find out who is the first person on the field.
Yep. So by next Friday, we'll have an idea if there is one particular player or if you are just simply going to continue to rule the roost, and it's going to be Matt Derrick and everybody else.
And this will be a best of 19 competition, so we will see who wins it.
That's right. Matt Derrick is our guest. Observations so far. I know it's only 3 days, and it's only the rookies / players who may have had an injury in Phase 3. But any particular takeaways and observations that you've seen over these 3 days?
Yeah, I mean, I think a handful of things. I mean, one, obviously, Patrick Mahomes is in midseason form, so I don't know if he really needs to be in training camp or needs to play any preseason games. I put him in bubble wrap and just be ready for the Lions in week 1 because he's good to go. And really these 3 days are about refreshing course for the rookies, for them to come in and figure out how training camp works, get their feet under them so that when the vets come in, they've figured things out. It's an opportunity for them to kind of get a little catch up. But at the same time, I mean, I think you find out who's comfortable and who's not. I think Rashee Rice has been really impressive these 3 days. For all the maybe grief that he got for vomiting on day one, right before he vomited, made a great catch in the back of the end zone on a throw from Mahomes that was just absolutely threaded through traffic and Bouchel threw that one. But great throw for Bouchel, just through traffic, and Rice made the catch. Then I think he's had a really couple of nice days in 7-on-7 the last 2 days. So he's been, to me, the most standout player. I mean, and nice. Recognizing that in a camp like this, it's a passing camp, so that's what you're looking for. But in that regard, Rice has been the one that's been most impressive to me.
That's good, because after the first day, there were certainly some concerns. Josh and I talked about it. We discussed it a little bit yesterday in thinking back to Andy Reid's comments on May 8th about, it's got to get us running in. We're going to run these guys like crazy. And whether he threw up at practice on Wednesday or not, I think there's a couple of ways. If you want to look at the negative part of it and say, well, he was out of shape. You want to look at the positive part of it. Well, he continued to run and run and run until his body said, stop running. And he said, no. And he kept going, and then he threw up. So it's a couple of ways that you can look at it, whichever way you want to frame and present this particular argument. But it's good to hear that, over the last couple of days that he's looked really good. One, because because if you're talking about the wide receivers there at camp, he's the premier of those guys that are there right now. And two, because of some of the storylines coming out on Wednesday about Rashee Rice and some concerns. And I think at least a note to set it over on the side, write it down, set it over on the side, that may be something we never ever get to in 2, 3, 4 years from now, and maybe something that's a precursor to look back on and go, oh, well, you never know. But I'm glad to hear that he looked really good these last couple of days.
Yeah, and a couple of things can be true at the same time. I mean, Rashee Rice can be in shape, but also not be in shape for what the Chiefs are asking him to do and what they ask their receivers to do. I mean, Rasheed had a pretty good point. I mean, on that first day, there's only 5 receivers in camp. He is on the field almost every single snap when they were in 7-on-7. And he was also getting asked to run a lot of deep routes. I mean, he probably ran more in those 2 7-on-7 periods than certainly any other receiver and maybe any other player. I mean, because there's a lot more defensive backs in camp. That's the other position that would be running a lot. Maybe linebackers because there's only 2 of those guys. But I would venture to guess that Rasheed Rice ran more during these 3 days than any other player. And clearly, I mean, looking at him, I mean, when he came into the tent, I mean, he was pretending to be out of breath when he came in. But
I know he was having fun with it.
He did. He handled it really well. So, I mean, you can be, like you said, I mean, you can have a bad day from just pushing yourself and exerting yourself too far, or it can be from, not being in good shape. Based on what I've seen through these 3 days, I would almost certainly put his troubles on day one of pushing himself too far too fast.
Yeah. Visiting with Matt Derrick, Chiefs Digest. What is your expected level of improvement, however you can frame it, whether that be a percentage or a number or just a way to describe it in your own words? But what would your expected level of improvement be with the Chiefs secondary this year, with all the young guys that played last year and the returning players and another offseason and full year in Steve Spagnuolo's defense?
Really good question, because I think it's hard to say at this point from what we've seen through OTAs and even the last couple of days, because we're just looking at the rookies. I mean, I do think there's a couple of players here that could definitely make a challenge. I mean, the guy we heard from today, Echo Boydo, I mean, I think has looked really good. I've been impressed with him. He's got some good size. Obviously, he has really good speed. Looks pretty comfortable out there. The Chiefs are going to give Nick Jones, the 7th-round draft pick, I think, a lot of chance to be a nickel guy. That doesn't mean that he's going to be exclusively a nickel guy, but certainly somebody that they could move around. The one, and I don't even call it a concern really, but the one question mark is just we did not get to consistently see the top guys at that position in OTAs, because L'Jarius Sneed and Trent McDuffie were really held out for the most part. So we didn't see them. That did mean that we saw a lot of Jalen Watson and Joshua Williams. But, even they rotated out a little bit, and Ozzie Johnson got some work. That was good for him, too. I think we just need to see what happens when those guys are consistently out there to make sure that they're ready to take that leap, because what you're hoping for, obviously, is that all of them are better this year. But then again, there's going to be tape on all of these guys now. They're going to get challenged in different ways, and we're going to see how they're going to respond to it. I think the potential is sky high, because the talent in this secondary group at both, every position, corner and safety, is improved, not just from, I say, a year ago, but even from the last few years. I think it's significantly improved. There's going to be good players on the wrong side of the cut line when they get down to 53, because I think at both positions they're deep enough that they've got true NFL players at all those spots. So, I mean, they should be percentage-wise. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think that certainly from a turnover standpoint, that's the one thing that you're looking for. And if their turnovers, to me, aren't 25% higher than last year, I think that would be a disappointment.
Interesting. Okay, that would be a disappointment. I thought you were going to say that the expected of 25% high, that would be a disappointment. I like that because how good they can be, and disguising more coverage and more of that playbook with Steve Spagnuolo. So interesting. As we'll take a break, but just going back to Rasheed Rice real quick, and the only one of 5 receivers. Had they had to do it over again, I wonder if like Justin Ross or Cornell Powell might have been like, oh, my calf, like on the last day of OTAs, like, my big toe hurts. I'm going to be limited today in practice, coach. And therefore they could show up early, dealing with a little bit of an injury.
Well, remember, Justin Ross did deal with that. I'm not sure that he was actually out there for any of mini camp, but my understanding is that if you're a full participant at any point during phase 3, that knocks you out.
Interesting.
Being
so
eligible
at any
to
point.
report early. Yeah.
I thought you just had to show up like during phase 3 on some sort of an injury report as limited or didn't practice, and then you were eligible to show up early. So that'd be different if at any point you were a full participant, because then it'd be different. Then it'd be a little more tough to sort of skew that with Justin Ross or Cornell Powell. But yeah, it's. Could have got an advantage, but they were healthy. So damn them for being healthy.
And and Cornell Powell has been out here the last few days because he's still a rookie. So.
Oh, that's a great point. I was thinking of Justin Ross, and I just put them in the same category of
but
like
Justin
sort of
Ross, not a rookie because he got an accrued season last year.
Because he got the
Down on
season
the end of
last year.
reserve.
That's right. Isn't that amazing? That's amazing. They've both been with the team since they came into the NFL. One's been with the team for 2 years. One's been with the team for 1 year. The guy that's been with the team for 2 years is still a rookie. The guy that's been with the team for 1 year is not.
Yep. Welcome to the vagaries of the NFL roster construction.
Love it. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. The Chiefs roster construction personnel, a couple of first-round draft picks on some defensive linemen. Pro Football Focus has their top 50 players, 3 Chiefs in the top 7. And we'll throw that stat to Matt Derrick about George Karlaftis and how he ended the season last year to see what he may be thinking of the second-year defensive end out of Purdue. More Zone coming up next.
Take the show with you by listening live on 810.
Hanging with Matt Derrick, Chiefs Digest, Jason Anderson, Josh Brisco, and Drake. All right, Matt, one of the things we talked about at the beginning of the show when we were sort of discussing players and Chiefs and improvements into year two from year one, I talked about George Karlaftis yesterday and what he did at the end of the season. So then I wanted to see just how he stacked up against some of the other players in the league. And in the last 7 games of the year, so week 12 to week 18 for George Karlaftis, he finished with 5.5 sacks, 7 tackles for loss, and 15 tackles. There are only 6 other players in the NFL over that time that had those numbers, at least 5.5 sacks, at least 7 tackles for loss, and at least 15 tackles. That is Chris Jones, Nick Bosa, Myles Garrett, Cam Hayward, Josh Sweat, and J.J. Watt. If you take those 7 games and look at it over the course of 17, that would be a pace for, and again, this is a 7-game stretch. It doesn't mean there's an expectation or anything like that, just about looking at how George Karlaftis played, at least from the counting stats way of viewing it. The course of the season would be 13 sacks, 17 tackles for loss, and 36 tackles. There were 3 players last year that did that over the course of the season. That's Nick Bosa, Myles Garrett, and Chris Jones. So that's really good company to be with. Did he come away with sacks in your mind to where maybe some other metrics or what you were seeing on the film weren't there? Whereas we were talking about, how did the Chiefs have so many pressures and so few sacks? Is he a guy that is better at turning pressures into sacks? Or did something happen from your standpoint with Karlaftis the last part of the year that there is maybe a level of expectation of play based on what we saw?
I mean, I felt like that there was something that happened last year. I mean, you seemed like he just got more comfortable and was figuring out how to close in the NFL. I mean, that's a real thing. I mean, there's a lot of guys that go through that they do need to go through that process. I mean, the one thing that was there, you kind of mentioned, was that he had the pressures. I mean, that was there as well. So this wasn't like just a matter of him backing into some sacks and maybe picking up some garbage stuff. No, I mean, these were well earned. I mean, he was getting pressure on the quarterback, and it was resulting in production at the end of the season. And I do think he started figuring some things out and getting more comfortable. And like I said, just figuring out how to be a closer as a sacker in the NFL is a big step. And I think he started to get there. And you're right. I mean, that's good, very good company to be on both those lists. I mean, that's exactly where you want to be. I mean, based on the way he finished this last season, I mean, I feel like a double-digit sack season is absolutely expected for George Karlaftis. I mean, I'm not expecting him, wouldn't be asking him to go out there and get 15 sacks or anything like that. But a 10-sack season is absolutely, I think, reasonable. Now, once again, just like the other young guys at corner, he's going to get defended a little bit differently. They'll approach him. He's going to be asked to do some things that he didn't have to do last year. Might line up in some different positions, but he's also going to have some help. Now, you will probably also expect that Felix Anudike-Uzomah is going to go through the same thing. That he might have the same process where maybe the back end of the season is going to be better for him than the first half, that he's going to need some adjustment. So, I mean, you're going to need some help. I mean, you're going to need Charles Omenihu to come through, because if he's a threat, then that's going to make life easier for Karlaftis. But I definitely thought that there were things you saw on tape, certainly in the last half of the season, that make you feel like those were real numbers and not just an illusion.
Yeah, and speaking of somebody else on that defensive line, Pro Football Focus's true pass sets, which is eliminating play action and screen passes and things like that, and just looking at the raw numbers of total pressures over the course of the season, when you eliminate that, and then they rank the top 10, Charles Omenihu came in at number 8 in pressures created on true pass sets. So, look, there's some thoughts around what this Chiefs defensive line could be this year. Real quick, Chris Jones, is he there on Sunday practicing with the Chiefs?
My gut says yes. I mean, at least he'll be here. I don't know if I'll say practicing, but my gut says yes.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I should clarify, is he there on Sunday practicing? That's a good clarification. Thank you, Matt. You're the man.
Take care, everybody.
There you go. There's Matt Derrick joining us. He is from Chiefs Digest. We'll take a time out. We'll come back. We'll continue more Zone rolling along on this Friday.
This summer, we're quirking for the weekend every day. Network is Kansas.
Thanks again to Matt Derrick of Chiefs Digest for joining us. We'll attempt to make contact once again with Jason Anderson momentarily. Matt Derrick with us is on the path to training camp. They're obviously in camp now. It's brought to you by Premier Volvo Cars of Overland Park, Zero Res, and Rally House. There was obviously a lot there from Mark Donovan's presser. There's a lot going on out at camp right now. And then the question of if Chris Jones will be, I think it's a good distinction, present at camp is a different question than if he'll be practicing in St. Joe when veterans report. But a lot to get to there. Dylan, did you make contact? Okay, I saw you talking down the line, looking like you may have located Jason. But we'll attempt to have him reconnect, and then we'll figure it out from there. But I think, as we stand here now, talked about Chris Jones as like the dismount there between Matt and Jason. I think, as we've talked about, this has not at any point been a recurring issue for, getting Chris Jones in the. Well, go ahead, Dylan. Nope, Dylan's got you. He gave me a finger up and then talked just to Jason. What's going on? We got Anderson back. We'll do it.
Hello?
Hi, Jason.
Hi, sorry.
What's going on? How you doing?
I'm good. I'm connected again.
That's fantastic. That's one of the most important things to be. So
yeah. How are you, Josh? It's been a long time, no talk.
It's been great. I was just kicking back to the good old days when you and Matt Derrick were hanging out and chatting, and just thinking about all the fun topics you guys covered, and just missing you.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. By the way, did you see my tweet that Seth Kaiser replied to?
I did.
Oh, wow, how about that? Huh?
Yeah.
That's pretty big time. I don't know. This would be pretty big in like a week's worth of time. If Patrick Mahomes retweets me last week, and then 1 week later on a Friday, I tweet out a stat and Seth Kaiser says, this gives me an idea for an article. I mean, and then if he were to write it about that, I'd be in heaven right now.
With the prices he charges, you could make him $10 or $15.
Right? I mean, seriously.
Over the course of the next 10 years, maybe.
Is that like a finder's fee with that?
I have breaking NFL news that breaks my heart.
Okay. Oh, breaking that breaks your heart. I'm not a fan of that then.
Ian Rappaport tweets, the Raiders will host free agent cornerback Marcus Peters for a visit and workout on Monday, sources say.
Oh.
They visited with him earlier in the spring. I remember that and thought, oh, okay, well, that bullet was dodged. I'm not ready to see Marcus Peters in a Raiders uniform. I feel like it would fit, but I don't want it. I don't want to see it. I don't like
He's got that part of it down, you're saying?
I think he would be a good Raider. I think he's got Raider energy, especially at this point in his career when he will just simply be a little more turn and burn, a little more up and down, a little more feast and famine. I think he would aesthetically fit, but it would make me sad.
Okay. So he's been with the Ravens for a while and now maybe with the Raiders. So maybe seeing him a couple of times. It might be sad, but not somebody you're going to have to worry about in the playoffs. So there's that.
It's purely emotional, not at all practical, having nothing to do with actually being afraid of the Raiders in any way.
That's right. That's right. By the way, have we seen any video or anything of like the veterans reporting? Like, when do they start showing up to St. Joe? I mean, it's 1 o'clock. I mean, I think if it's report date,
it's over the course of the day today. That's why
that ended up any video or anything
getting moved around. Yeah, there's not a deadline. Oftentimes it's like, hey, it's by 1 o'clock on report day, and apparently today is a little more free flowing, come and go kind of. Just report when you feel like it. Vibes-based reporting today.
Yeah, but I thought maybe a couple of people might have shown up by now to where there'd be some video or some tweets of, hey, look who's here. This person is showing up. Like, there's a lot of veterans. Like, there's 90 people that are going to training camp. And they're not all at camp right now. So, I don't know, just sort of interesting. Maybe they're going in the back way. Maybe they're trying to avoid any media seeing them.
Yeah, I don't know that they're doing kind of the pseudo
Welcoming
red
committee.
carpet. The asphalt carpet.
Yeah, maybe they aren't. I don't know. I just I've been checking it and looking to see if the tweet hits Twitter, social media of, hey, Chris Jones is there. Then they're like, all right, there we go. Now we can talk about that or from that perspective and not have to worry or wonder, not necessarily worry, but just wonder if that's going to happen. But again, it is report date for the veterans today. 913-810-810 is the phone number. Dylan Michaels is with us for the final hour. 913-810-810. Dylan, that's the phone number because we're going to go ahead and give away some Dude Perfect tickets. How about that? Coming up on Thursday, July 27th, Dude Perfect, the Pandemonium 2023 Tour live at T-Mobile Center. Thursday, July 27th, brand new battles, unbelievable, cool, not cool items that'll blow your mind, and tons more. That is this Thursday, July 27th at T-Mobile Center. We're going to give away 2 pair of tickets, so 4 total tickets. 2
pairs of tickets to 2 people. 2 winners are each going to get 2 tickets. 4 total tickets to 2 separate winners, split evenly.
Give me 2 per. What numbers you want?
I don't know. You want to do like 7 and 9? Maybe. I don't know.
You know what we should do? We should do 9 and 5 for Chris Jones.
I love it. Let's do that. But caller number 9 needs to win first, Dylan. This is important. 5-9 is nothing. We need 9-5.
Caller number 9 gets their first choice of which pair, A or B.
Ooh, that's good. Yeah, you can get slightly better.
No
tickets.
idea where the seats are.
I don't either. I imagine they're all together. Yeah, would be my guess. I don't know.
Do you want seat 5 and 6 or 7 and 8?
I'm pretty confident you will get 2 seats, together. Not you.
Yeah.
That hopefully no one's getting 1 and 7 here. Or I don't know. Maybe you don't like the person you're going to give this ticket to. Maybe you can swap.
That's right. We do have a ticket in row J, and the other ticket is actually in row B. Your choice, though. Your choice, but that's your pair of tickets. Beggars, choosers. So if you wanted the tickets together, go buy them. I mean, come on. We're giving you these. These are free. What do you want, a refund? Anyway, caller 5 and caller 9 for Dude Perfect tickets coming up Thursday, July 27th. The Pandemonium 2023 Tour live at T-Mobile Center. And Dylan will be telling you if you won or you lost.
Working the phones right now.
There we go. 913-912-4810. I looked at the ESPN Future Power Rankings that they put out for all the NFL teams, and this is essentially, 23, 24, 25, and then the health of the organization and the teams moving forward, and really the teams that are set up to, with coaches, players, front office in line, set up to be successful, not just this year. So you got the power rankings, and then you got the future power rankings. The Chiefs come in at number 2. Philadelphia Eagles are number 1. Chiefs are number 2. So a few things that I noticed about this that I wanted to talk about. They broke it into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 categories, I guess. The roster minus the quarterback. The Chiefs came in at number 5. Quarterback overall, Chiefs came in at number 1. Coaching staff, Chiefs came in at number 1. Drafting, Chiefs came in at number 3. Front office, Chiefs came in at number 5. So in those 5 categories, roster minus quarterback, quarterback specific, coach, draft, and front office, Chiefs, with whatever the formula is, they are number 2. Did you get a chance to look at the future power rankings, Josh, of what ESPN put out yesterday?
I thought we were going to play the game of making me guess things and then be stupid and wrong on air. So I've averted my eyes. I would
so stupid.
I'd be happy to join in whenever I've given permission to look at ESPN.com.
No, you can definitely look at it.
Okay.
I should have done that. I should have been like, roster minus quarterback. Where do they rank in the NFL? Go ahead and guess. Where do they rank in the NFL?
I'm going to say, I'll guess 5.
Yeah, well done.
Wow,
they are
I'm
actually
so smart.
number 5. Yeah. Do you want to guess? How about this? Which teams are in front of the Chiefs?
That I don't know, and I'd be curious. I'd be curious to know because I don't have any way of knowing that, Jason. I'd love to hear it.
Number 1 being Philadelphia.
Whoa, really? Philly number 1.
Roster minus quarterback. Philly number 1.
Wow.
Miami number 2. Cincinnati number 3. 49ers number 4. Chiefs number 5. Now, the way they came up with this is they had a number of their analysts put a number next to each of these, like roster minus quarterback. It's like a 0 to 100 scale. So you're like, I think the Chiefs are like a 96 in that scale. So not like 1 through 32. So some of them can be tied, but then alphabetical order, all of that stuff. So Philadelphia, Miami, Cincinnati, San Francisco, and then the Chiefs. That's the roster minus quarterback. I mentioned that quarterback, they're number 1. Coach, they're number 1. They're number 3 in drafting. That is behind Seattle, number 1, and Philadelphia, number 2. So that's a category where, again, Philadelphia came in at number 1, so they're going to be ranked pretty high in some of these. And then front office. Front office, they came in 5th. And this is where I wanted to sort of discuss things, because I think there's a part of this that's missing that can maybe take away from what the future power rankings would be for the health for the Chiefs moving forward. Would if you add this in, it would actually benefit and look at how the Chiefs might be in a more a healthier spot than some of these other teams. Front office, they're number 5. Number 1 in front office is, shocker, Philadelphia. Number 2 is Baltimore. Number 3 is Buffalo. Number 4 is Seattle. And then number 5 is the Chiefs. So a couple things that I wanted to discuss here, because one of those sticks out to me specifically on I'm not sure I really agree with that. And that being the front office. And Buffalo being number 3 in overall front office. Because they're not ahead of the Chiefs in the roster minus the quarterback. They're not ahead of the Chiefs in drafting. They're not ahead of the Chiefs in quarterback. But they're ahead of the Chiefs in front office. And what is really interesting as to how whoever voted came up with the Bills front office being better than the Chiefs at number 3 and the Chiefs being number 5 is we're not including salary cap health moving forward because Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, and Von Miller are going to be $100 million against the cap next year. So a team that's behind the Chiefs in roster minus quarterback, behind the Chiefs in drafting, is somehow ahead of the Chiefs in front office. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. If you want to say Philadelphia, they get a lot of love for the drafting and what they were able to do in this last draft and all of that stuff. If you want to say Seattle, hey, still they get a lot of compliments for the roster building and drafting. You want to say Baltimore, they've constantly been credited and complimented for how good the front office is. Okay, that's fine. Buffalo doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Am I just reacting to the fact that it's Buffalo, or what are your thoughts on that, Josh, if Buffalo being behind the Chiefs and those other things and salary cap health not being a part of the front office?
Well, right.
Voting?
So that's the little like nitpicking that I would do, I guess, is that how exactly are we quantifying front office? If my like sort of sneaky lukewarm take is that Brett Veach has been really good at drafting as opposed to God's gift to drafting. Like, that's my like little distinction sometimes. Like, I think you could nitpick on some draft stuff that's like a bigger conversation that no one really wants to have because they've drafted very well and the roster is very healthy and they have Patrick Mahomes. So it's kind of a silly distinction. But if you want to, like, you know, visit the Mike Florio school of being angry about contracts, Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce are on great deals orchestrated by the front office. If this would have had the Chiefs at like 6, 7, or 8 in drafting, I would have been willing to like play the bad guy and build you my counter arguments and say, you know, here's where you can differentiate a little bit. But I don't understand how you're 5 in overall roster minus quarterback. Obviously, you got the quarterback, right? And you're 3rd in drafting, but 5th in front office health. You're 5th in roster, 3rd in drafting. Is that not the two things that a front office does? Is ESPN worried about, like, you know, the stadium? Do they have doubts about Mark Donovan? I don't know. So I don't
ability to get a player through waivers to the practice squad. The Chiefs are terrible at that.
Right. I mean,
I have no idea if they are.
They've been great at that. I mean, it's one of the reasons that I think Echo Boydo has a chance to be a Chief in 2 years while never being on the active roster this year. Is like, yeah, you throw him on the practice squad, coaching staff develops him, and now you've got what a savvy move by the front office. So I don't really understand like what they're getting dinged for there, because I mean, at this point especially, 1-year deals are typically what end up getting handed out to the veterans like Carlos Dunlap, who comes in, produces, and then doesn't have any dead cap hits to deal with. You make a move for, I guess, acquiring Kadarius Toney, using draft picks in ways other than in the draft. That's certainly a way you could, get a feel for the front office that's not specifically about salary cap and draft stuff. Who right now doesn't think the Chiefs are happy to have given up a 3rd-round pick for Kadarius Toney? It's strange. Yeah. I don't think it's some grand disrespect. I think you can nitpick and say, oh, here's where the Bills have been better, or here's where the Chiefs have been better. But specifically for Buffalo, when you do have, I'm not going to hold Josh Allen against him or Stephon Diggs against him. Von Miller eventually is going to be an albatross. He is just going to be, I'll have to see what the last year of that deal ends up being. But there will be dead money from Von Miller on the Bills' salary cap that they have to pay the price for. That, to me, seems like a quintessential place to talk about the front office.
The roster minus quarterback, I think, is one that I wanted to get into and discuss a little bit. Because the one thing that sticks out to me is, and this is where I think it's a credit to Brett Veach, and it's where I think the Chiefs are most healthy moving forward. And it's what we've talked about with the issues with the Chargers over the next couple of years and their aging team and salary cap situation. Issues with, I believe, the Bills over the next couple of years with their window that's open, but the salary cap that is about to start pounding the Buffalo Bills because of what Josh Allen's contract's going to be in 2024. Again, Allen, Von Miller, and Diggs are going to be a combined $100 million against the cap next year. Those 3 guys alone. Just, think about that. That's average that out, if you will, of those 3 guys, what the cap number is going to be. Now, you can restructure, obviously, and create some space and all of those things, but as it stands right now, that's a large number for those 3 particular players. But as I go through the top 10 that they have in rosters minus quarterback, if I go through the top 10, number 1, Philadelphia, number 2, Miami, number 3, Cincinnati, number 4, San Francisco, number 5, the Chiefs, number 6, Baltimore, number 7 is tied with Buffalo and Dallas, and then 9 and 10 is the Chargers and Pittsburgh. I thought I said Philadelphia, but Pittsburgh and the Chargers, 9 and 10 in roster minus the quarterback. Those top 4, anything stick out to you? Philadelphia, Miami, Cincinnati, San Francisco.
What was interesting to me the first time you went through it was that I don't know who's benefiting other than the Niners from subtracting the quarterback, which is sort of intriguing to me. Like, clearly, the Niners have the biggest quarterback question of that group, and Tua would be next up. I don't think this is what you're leading me to, but it was the first thing that I thought of in terms of, I think we do see there be a bump for how we perceive a roster when they do have the quarterback, but that's like 4 layers deep. So I'm in inception of roster evaluation right now. What stands out to you?
What stands out to me is the Chiefs roster minus quarterback being number 5. They have a $40 million quarterback. The top 4 have a rookie deal. So building a roster without the quarterback, the top 4 all have a quarterback still on a rookie deal. Philadelphia, Jalen Hurts, $6 million. Tua, $9.6 million. Burrow, $11.5. San Francisco, when you add in Trey Lance and Brock Purdy and Sam Darnold, by the way.
Thank you. I was going to say, please include Sam Darnold.
It comes to a total of $14 million. Patrick Mahomes is $40 million this year. Of the other 9 teams in the top 10, 6 of them have a quarterback on a rookie contract right now in building your roster minus the quarterback. That, to me, is sort of like an extra bump when you talk about front office, right? The Chiefs are surrounded by teams that ESPN views as the best rosters in football without the quarterback, and they are surrounded by teams who are paying their quarterback $6 to $11, $12, $13 million against the cap, and the Chiefs have $40 million with Patrick Mahomes. That to me is where we talk about the health moving forward and what the Chiefs have done where these other teams have not. You get to a point in the road, Josh, to where you've got to make a decision, sink or swim. How do we move forward? Which road do we take? Which door do we choose? Door number 1, we pay a lot of money for all of these top-end players that have helped us get to the spot we are. Door number 2, we make some real tough choices. Door number 3, we go, just completely cheap. Or we go like the Rams and just trade all draft picks and just kind of, keep it going from that standpoint. Like, I don't know how many doors there are, but just different options that are there. The Chiefs have already got there and chose the door of, we got to trade Tyreek Hill. We've got to revamp. We've got to take a step back and redo what the next phase of this Chiefs organization is going to be. And they went and won a Super Bowl doing that. Philadelphia is going to get to the point to where that Jalen Hurts contract is going to kick in. Tua, they're going to have to sink or swim with him at some point. Tua, the salary cap for the Dolphins right now and trading the draft picks, if Tua's not the guy, it's going to be an issue. If Tua is the guy, they're going to have to pay him. So it'll be an issue then as well. We know Burrow's going to get paid. No idea about San Francisco. No clue whatsoever.
No clue.
Herbert's going to get paid. He's only $8.5 million right now. Pittsburgh is number 9, and they're at $3.2 million cap with their starting quarterback. The other ones that come in there that are not on quote-unquote rookie deals, the Ravens are paying Lamar $22 million this year. Buffalo, $18.6 for Josh Allen. This is the final year before they really start paying for Josh Allen. And then Dak is $26.8 million against the cap this year, and the Cowboys are number 7. But of the top 15 teams with roster minus quarterback, only 3 have a quarterback with a cap hit over $20 million. Chiefs, the Detroit Lions with $31 million in their quarterback cap hits, and the Dallas Cowboys at $26.8. The only 3 teams in the top 15 of ESPN's rankings of roster minus quarterback that have a quarterback with at least a $20 million cap hit. Chiefs have 40 in Patrick Mahomes this year.
It would be a good place to give a little extra credit to a front office where you're able to have the 5th best overall roster minus quarterback with $30 million less to use on it than the 4 teams in front of you. Like, that's what it is. There is actually a degree of difficulty, like, obviously added in there because your budget has been significantly shrunk. You're winning the national championship with fewer scholarships here. Like, there is a very clear, if you take Von Miller off the Bills roster, where is their roster now? I mean, you could do that for anyone that you want to add up $30 million to.
True.
And it really is exceptional. The one other element, just like from the jump, and I see the scoring, and I understand the rubric, and I know that for quarterback, the Chiefs get 100 because they have the number 1 guy, and it's Patrick Mahomes. But if this ranking would be willing to break its own rules enough to actually make sure they get it right, they would have gotten like 120 for Patrick Mahomes. Like, you would really get 120%. Right. You get extra credit for having Patrick Mahomes. I like Jalen Hurts, and maybe he is going to continue to be the 4th best quarterback in football. I have my doubts. But if you want it to be, Burrow or Allen or whoever you think is number 2, they can be worth whatever you want in your scale of 1 to 100. They can be worth your 98 percentage points. Mahomes should be worth more than 100, though, if you're doing it on that scale, or no one else should be worth 85.
What I'll be interested to see, and we can chart these as the years, come and go, but next year, what the future power rankings end up being, what that list looks like, of like, hey, in 27, here's what we think the future power rankings will be in the NFL. And then in 2025, hey, here's what we think the future power rankings are going to be, 3 years from now, as they're looking at it this year after the 25 season. Who's most likely to continue to show up there in the top? And I think that's what Brett Veach has done in being able to draft the way that he has, pivot the way that they did a year ago, being able to, get younger, cheaper, more athletic, and have Patrick Mahomes. That is a cheat code. That is that is obviously a huge advantage. But next year at this time, when, we know what Burrow's contract looks like, and the Bengals, would have to at that point figure out something for T. Higgins. This time next year, T. Higgins is playing on a franchise tag or has a long-term extension or is on a different team. Those are the 3 options for T. Higgins because he is a free agent after this year. And Joe Burrow will have his contract done. What San Francisco look like? What do the Dolphins look like? Because in 2 or 3 years, because the Chiefs have already done this and they're already playing the game right now with having a $40 million quarterback, I think if I'm voting like who's most likely to, those superlatives in the yearbook, most likely to continue to show up in the top 5 over the next 3 or 4 years, I think the Chiefs would be number one.
Yo, absolutely. And like you said, because it's not just if we were having this conversation mid-February 2020, I don't think it's as obvious. I think it still would have been true because of the quarterback, but I don't think it would have been as cut and dried. The difference here is that the Chiefs are already in, like you said, that not just that mindset, but they have proven their ability to do it. And that doesn't mean you're going to be able to do it every time, because you're not always going to have a player as superb as Tyreek Hill who will bring back as much in a trade as Tyreek Hill. It's not always find an elite player, use him for a few years, and then trade him away. It's not that the Chiefs have something that is completely mathematic at this point, but they are already succeeding in the world where they do have $30 million less to work with than these other teams do. They are already in the roster churn, and so is Patrick Mahomes, by the way, where he can win a Super Bowl with Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, and then win one with Juju Smith-Schuster and Marquez Valdez-Scantling and Travis Kelce. Mm-hmm. This continuing evolution is something the Chiefs are comfortable with, that they have done successfully and ended up at the mountaintop even after their most disorienting, uprooting move of this era. So I think to say that anyone else is better set than the Chiefs would be foolish. Even as the Eagles have shown an ability to draft and develop and continue to draft. Bleep those guys, man. I just can't believe they got away with what they got away with in 2023. This last draft class is just absolutely ludicrous for them, but whatever. They are in a very healthy spot. But we have not seen Jalen Hurts on that mega deal. We have not seen him do it multiple times. It's just hard. Like we all watched quarterback. You have a better understanding now. And there, by the way, I wanted to get it listened to completely before I started talking about it. Free recommendation for your drive back, Jason, on the Athletic Football Show feed. Shocking. There's a series called The Play Callers that Jordan Rodrigue does.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah, I've got it in the queue.
It is worth your time. I think you're going to love it. She gets a ton of good stuff from Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan and Mike McDaniel and LaFleur. It's the Washington coaching crew as they then splinter across the NFL and influence the game. The way that they talk about the chess match of offenses do this and innovate, and then defenses figure out how to adjust, and then the offenses have to innovate again, and then the defenses that process is such a tremendous and unfortunately lesser known part of how football works. The Chiefs have been able to do that both from a front office and coaching level that these other teams just haven't had to do yet. So, of course, they have proven it the most and should be at the top of these lists.
Yeah, a couple of quick nuggets, and then we'll go to a break. Jalen Hurts, and we talk about his contract, just a 6.15 cap hit this year. Next year's 13.5. 2025, it'll be $22 million. Not until 2026 does he get into the $30 million range. So the Eagles are set up pretty well as well. But as it relates to the Chiefs, make no mistake, the next phase is how do you win without Kelce?
Yep.
And it was they won with Tyreek and Kelce. They won with, as you said, Juju and MVS and Kelce. What's the next phase of winning with insert names here without hearing Kelce's name? That's going to have to be reality sometime, but they still have 3 more years, at least from what Travis Kelce said about playing out at least the rest of his contract for 3 years of not having to worry about that. Go and get another 1 or 2, who knows, or 3.
The Eagles aren't going to have to deal with Jalen Hurts having a $30 million cap hit until 2026, and the Chiefs aren't going to have to play without Travis Kelce until at least 2036. Let's not worry about that.
Both are factually correct.
Let me soothe myself. I'm getting anxious over here.
We'll take a timeout. We'll come back, and we'll see who's going to raise the roof. And then, of course, we got cuts before the show is over. We'll take a timeout. More Zone next.
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Westwood One Sports presents this special report on the 151st British Open. Get ready for the NFL season with NFL Plus. Sign up today at plus.nfl.com. Terms and conditions apply. If you were in a British Open pool this week making your picks with friends, it's likely no one took Brian Harman. But the lefty from Georgia just might run away with the claret jug at this rate. Harman, 10 under par, 4 shots better than the field. Harman went out early this morning and posted a 6 under 65. Englishman Tommy Fleetwood alone in second at 6 under after birdies at...
nice and brisk and healthy in here. And so Drake and Dylan have just alternated between, from what I can tell, sparring and relay racing.
Yeah, you know how sometimes and me trying to do that too. I mean, I am all about physical fitness and working out constantly. We talked about last week on Friday following Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce around the golf course and what my Apple Watch said. There's memories and stuff on like Facebook and everything. And then this morning my Apple Watch was like, "Hey, you worked out last week. Want to try it again today?"
That's the worst.
The hell, man.
That was the worst. When we
Facebook memory of when you worked out last week. Well, I just walked a golf course. Well, it's close for you.
You should try it again, man. It really is good. That happened to me when we got back from the honeymoon, and we walked like whatever my number was for Fact or Fiction, like 6 or 7 miles a day over the course of the 13 days. So then we get back, and then I'm just sort of a fat couch potato for 2 weeks, and my phone is like, "Your walking patterns changed since a couple of weeks ago. Do you want to see what those numbers look like?" No, I don't. No, Siri, I would rather not, because I know what they look like, and they look like I've been a big fat couch potato for a month.
Couldn't help but notice your screen time is up 700%, and your workout time is down 3,000%.
Infinitely. Your screen, bizarrely, it appears to us that you have not moved your feet 1 foot in front of the other in 2 weeks.
There's a lot of touching things with your index finger and swiping and things like that and sitting there, but not much else is being worked out. Are we recording this wrong, or what's the deal? No, you actually got it absolutely right. Got it right. That is by choice.
My biceps are okay still, just because that's the motion it takes to move food to your mouth. Like, it's just,
that's right.
I'm just shoveling. I eat like Cookie Monster now.
Thank you. All right, who is going to raise the roof this weekend? And then, of course, we got last week's cuts. We got this week's cuts.
Boy.
We got cuts on cuts, man. We are cutting things up.
We're going to be a couple of cuts, cutting cuts up.
That's right. We're going to cut it up. Who's raising the roof, though?
Well, S is for Shamrock, brought to you by Shamrock Roofing and Construction. One call does it all. And who's raising the roof this weekend? For multiple reasons. Washington football fans. And I didn't call them any of the names they've been previously because, the news, it's not just that Dan Snyder's out, and man, what a bag of doggy turds. But it's not just that. It is that, per Don Van Natta, there is, quote, a pretty good chance, unquote, that the new ownership of the Washington team, I'm not using their old name for obvious reasons, and I'm not using their new name because I don't like it.
What about the middle name?
Their middle name I do enjoy the most, but I'm afraid to lead too close here to where the future may go, because apparently there's a pretty good chance that they will change the franchise team name and have, quote, a complete rebranding, unquote, of the team, per Don Van Natta. So I think that is cause for Washington fans to raise the roof like no other, because they've got a new owner. They might have a new, better team name, a refresh. They'll keep the colors, I'm sure, but a refresh would go down real smooth, I think, in D.C. So I think Washington fans are raising the roof. Brought to you by Shamrock Roofing and Construction, Kansas City's local, residential, and commercial roofing contractors. One call does it all.
So it could be in a matter of 4 years what they were, then football team, then Commanders or Guardians, whichever one is which, and then what they ultimately will be. And as long as they look nothing like the Indianapolis Colts' alternate uniform, then they will be just fine. That's not raising the roof.
No.
They should raise the temperature on that fire and throw them in there.
They should lower those into the ground.
That's right. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll lower the show's sophomoric humor to cuts coming up next.
Want to see more of The Zone? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810 WHB Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch.
Attention, Chiefs Kingdom. Training camp is here, and that can only mean one thing. Football season.
of the show, the best and award-winning internet. No data caps, no annual contracts, no hidden fees, and the same price for 1 gig internet since 2012. An awesome customer service that you probably won't even need to use. Let's go ahead and cut it up for what happened this week and even last week. Let's do the cuts. Dylan, take it away.
I have a pliable relationship with time.
Heartbreak is gonna break, and break is gonna break. I'm just gonna shake it off.
Jeff Passan.
You'll be able to watch the Home Run Derby higher than the home runs. I'll also be doing that, but you'll be in a plane.
Well done.
Well, we weren't always that big to start off with, so going through Little League,
Right.
in high school I could hula hoop through a Cheerio.
David
Great,
Wells.
David Wells.
Yeah.
That was awesome. Hula hoop through a Cheerio.
Mo Vaughn owned my ass. I couldn't get that dude out to save my life.
He did a lot of pitchers. No
It
way.
comes back in circles, especially in the 40 or the 95 or 6 when those Pokemons came out.
Oh, now we're speaking my language again.
Josh, there you go.
Beanie
Hold on
Babies
to
and
those.
Pokemon? Let's go, Dave.
Yeah.
That's a highlight for me, man. I love that.
Always.
Yay, I threw up today.
That was Les Norman doing a pre-Rishi Rice impression.
Kind of a cool breeze going on right
I
now.
mean
and
this with the most love, but shut up.
I love you, Les.
Sorry about the delay, folks. We had a passenger that did not want to pay for their dog to get on the plane and tried to sneak the dog on the plane, so we've had to deal with that.
That's a true story.
That's crazy.
True
We got the
story.
audio from that.
I know, it's weird. Thank you to the captain. Captain speaking.
We will continue our coverage from Lake Tahoe American Century Championship. Stephen St. John here all week as well. Program.
I think that's how that show ended, if memory serves.
I got the Heisman. I'm like, oh, wait, the music is done playing. Whoops.
Program. Are you willing to die for film, Miles? Because Tom is.
That's right. How committed are you? Are you the chicken or are you the pig? Because the chicken's involved, the pig is committed.
It's true.
He would probably enjoy it the most out here since he's a big golf fan, and he's a big jock sniffer as well. So maybe he like that too. Josh, how are you today, bud? We're driving home and we were in the car for like 15 minutes, and I'm like, man. It smelled like there's something. Did we leave food in here or something? It's pretty musty and like. Oh, that's right. We have a waterlogged, sweat-logged headband in here from Patrick Mahomes. So the car smelled of Patrick Mahomes' sweat. So which was a dream for a lot of people.
Yeah, you haven't cleaned your car since.
It's a new scent on one of those little trees you can hang from your rearview mirror.
Mahomes sweat.
Hey, Jason, you remember Mick Schaefer? That's what that voice was.
I'm not familiar. I don't know. You know what I am familiar with and can't wait is to start doing shows in Central Time Zone again. That'll be next week. Thank goodness. West Coast, Eastern. Give me some more Central, baby.
I'm Dr. Andrew Palmisano, a fellowship-trained orthopedic surgeon with Acentus Healthcare. Acentus now has orthopedic surgery and sports medicine. Myself and Drs. E.J. Wilkinson and Nick Aberly are available for all of your orthopedic needs. Come see our state-of-the-art clinics during our walk-in hours featuring same-day and next-day appointments, Monday through Friday in Leawood and on Parallel Parkway in Kansas City. Call 913-395-0294, 913-395-0294 to book your appointment at Acentus Healthcare today.